Chapter 1652, Origin of the Great Wilderness. Chapter 1652 Origin of the Great Wilderness. After saying that, the human emperor looked up at the firmaments and sighed. I've got to return. There are still many people on the other side that I have to protect. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he asked hurriedly, Senior, have you heard of the Great Wilderness? Great Wilderness? The human emperor was slightly stunned before nodding. The Great Wilderness is one of the upper worlds where ferocious demon beasts roam and are extremely strong. It's considered as one of the strongest medium kiliacosms in the upper world. Su Zimo's eyes were filled with ecstasy. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had finally obtained definite news. The Great Wilderness was one of the medium kiliacosms. As long as he could ascend to the upper world successfully, he would have a chance to meet Daiyu. Although Su Zimo was still a distance away from Daiyu, the two of them were getting closer. Just as he was about to leave, Su Zimo took a deep breath and finally asked the question that had been lingering in his mind for a long time. Senior Human Emperor, do you know Daiyu? Daiyu? The human emperor pondered and shook his head. Su Zimo sighed internally and a look of disappointment flashed through his eyes. However, he quickly understood. The upper world was way too huge. It was formed by 1,000 medium kiliacosms and every single medium kiliacosm could accommodate countless Tianhuang mainlands. Since the human emperor was not in the Great Wilderness, it was only natural that he had not heard of Daiyu. No matter what, this time round, Su Zimo found out about the origin of the Great Wilderness. That gave him endless motivation. Tossing out his palm, the human emperor returned the human emperor's brush to the palace guardian and nodded slightly. Yuhua, well done. It's been hard on you to guard the human emperor's palace all these years as well. The matter of Tianhuang mainland has come to an end for the time being. It's time for you to undergo the tribulation transcendence. If you drag on for a little more time and your blood chi deteriorates, the chances of you surviving the tribulation transcendence will be greatly reduced. Thank you, Master. The palace guardian received the human emperor's brush and bowed respectfully. Is there any candidate for the next palace guardian? The human emperor asked. He knew very well that there was another important reason why Yuhua did not undergo the tribulation transcendence. He had not found a suitable successor for the human emperor's palace. Not yet. The palace guardian sighed and shook his head gently. The successor of the human emperor's palace did not only require extraordinary talent and terrifying combat strength. More than that, he needed a strong mental state. Throughout history, there have been many powerful emperors. However, if most of them were like the emperors in this generation who only cared about their own cultivation and ignored the safety of the human race, they would not be worthy of being the successor of the human emperor's palace. In title, this was just the successor of the palace guardian of the human emperor's palace. However, in reality, this would also be the successor meant to protect Tianhuang mainland and the human race. I'll recommend someone to you. The human emperor shifted his gaze towards the storyteller not far away. It was an honor to be acknowledged by the human emperor. A rosy glow appeared on the storyteller's face as he suddenly straightened his body. His essence, chi, and spirit seemed to have reached their peak. All the experts present sighed gently. All of them could tell that the storyteller was in his final moments of lucidity prior to his death. Before long, the storyteller would die here. The palace guardian said, indeed, with his temperament, he can inherit the human emperor's palace. However, he only comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. His combat strength is insufficient. Most importantly, he doesn't have much lifespan left. The palace guardian gave a look of pity. The storyteller paid an extremely tragic price for summoning the human emperor forcefully this time round and expended all his lifespan. Thank you for your high regards, Senior Human Emperor. The storyteller smiled. However, I feel that I don't have much time left and truly don't have the strength to inherit the human emperor's palace. Now that I have received your acknowledgement, I can die without regrets. Master. Lin Xuanji arrived before the storyteller and knelt down. Initially, it was a joyous matter that the human race was out of danger. However, Lin Xuanji could not bring himself to be happy at the moment. From the day he acknowledged his master, he had been fooling around with the storyteller. There had never been any etiquette or hierarchy in front of the storyteller. If it was any other stiff and traditional cultivator, they would have disowned Lin Xuanji as their disciple a long time ago. However, the storyteller did not take it to heart. Lin Xuanji had never expressed such emotions in front of the storyteller. However, at that moment, he knelt in front of the storyteller with tears streaming down his sleeves. There's no need for that. The human emperor smiled gently. Ling Long knew that you would exhaust your lifespan by releasing that secret skill. When I descended, she gave me an elixir. As he said that, he beckoned to the shimmering crack in the firmaments. It was only then that everyone noticed a small jade-green bottle floating in the firmaments. This was something that fell when the human emperor's body was shattered. However, that scene was way too shocking and nobody noticed the existence of the small bottle. The small medicine bottle was already filled with cracks. It must have endured an immense impact traveling down from the upper world. Thankfully, this small medicine bottle is safe. The human emperor took out the elixir from the bottle and flicked his finger, sending it before the storyteller. He nodded slightly. Eat this elixir pill. This elixir pill was refined by Ling Long using immortal herbs of the upper world. It's an immortal pill that can increase one's lifespan, the human emperor explained. Ah! The storyteller's heart skipped a beat. In Tianhuang Mainland, once a cultivator was at the emperor realm, any elixir pill that could increase one's lifespan no longer had any effect on them. To think that the human emperor would descend with an immortal pill refined by Fairy Ling Long personally. The human emperor replied, of course, this immortal pill doesn't add much lifespan either. It's fine, it's fine. The storyteller was excited and received the immortal elixir hurriedly, swallowing it in a single mouthful. For those who were about to die, no matter how little their lifespans were extended, they could at least survive. Furthermore, there was hope as long as he survived. At the very least, the storyteller could choose to attempt the tribulation transcendence and take the risk. After a brief pause, the human emperor continued, of course, it's only enough to extend your lifespan by tens of thousands years. The storyteller was stunned. Pust. Gasps could be heard from the crowd as well. A lifespan extension tens of thousands of years. This meant that the storyteller would recover to his peak after consuming this elixir pill. Senior human emperor sure is bold in his words. Little Fatty muttered softly at the side. Shi Jian let out a look of admiration. As expected of the eternal human emperor. An increase in lifespan by tens of thousands of years is nothing in his eyes. The moment the immortal pill entered the storyteller's stomach, a terrifying life force burst forth and swept through his body, bloodline, organs and essence spirit rapidly. The storyteller's white hair fell off and his black hair regrew at a visible speed. The wrinkles on his face vanished and his beard was gone. He looked absolutely hale and hearty. Lin Xuanji was stunned and his eyes were filled with tears, completely dumbfounded. What was going on? The old man had regained his youth in the blink of an eye and even looked younger than him. He had cried for nothing. Good disciple, hurry and get up. The storyteller looked at Lin Xuanji and said with a smile, his eyes filled with mockery. Fuck. With a whoosh, Lin Xuanji leaped up from the ground and turned to leave. Without even wiping away the tears on his face, he grit his teeth. Old man, you have no morals at all. How dare you mock me? Chapter 1653, Inheritance of the Human Emperor. Chapter 1653 Inheritance of the Human Emperor. The Human Emperor returned the Human Emperor's brush to the Palace Guardian and gave an immortal pill to the storyteller. This also meant that the next Palace Guardian would be this generation's Mystic Emperor. Right now, the Human Emperor only had 2 Emperor weapons left: his mirror and seal. The Human Emperor glanced sideways and his gaze seemed to pass through the voids, landing in a corner of the heaven-expanding mountain range. There was a long-haired man in grayish-white robes. There was a blood scar on his glabella and his eyes were clear and bright. His gaze was gentle, as though it contained endless wisdom. However, he also exuded an extremely evil aura. 2 completely contrasting auras were exuded by this white-robed man. This white-robed man had once entered the Human Emperor's palace and received his inheritance as well. When the Human Emperor fought against the emperors of the primordial races earlier on, he retrieved his Human Emperor's mirror from this person. After pondering for a moment, the Human Emperor raised his hand and tossed the Human Emperor's mirror. Turning into a streak of light, it entered the heaven-expanding mountain range and returned to the hands of the white-robed man. The white-robed man shuddered with a conflicted expression. He believed that with the Human Emperor's capabilities and experience, the latter would definitely be able to tell that something was amiss with him. However, the Human Emperor still chose to hand the Human Emperor's mirror over to him. It was a form of silent trust. The white-robed man sighed gently and held the Human Emperor's mirror with both hands. He bowed deeply in the direction of the Human Emperor and chanted Buddhist proclamations softly. In Enigma Palace, Su Zimo noticed the Human Emperor's actions and his heart skipped a beat. Others might not know the location of the Human Emperor's mirror, but he knew very well that it had returned to Monk Daming's hands. In other words, Monk Daming was still in the heaven-expanding mountain range. As though he recalled something, Su Zimo let out a mysterious smile. "My young friend Desolate Marshal, it's time to return your body to you." The Human Emperor's voice sounded once more. With a whoosh, the Human Emperor's essence spirit left the head of the Green Lotus true body and flew towards the crack in the firmaments that shone with a blinding white light. Human Emperor. Many cultivators revealed reluctance when they saw the Human Emperor leave and shouted. The Human Emperor's essence spirit suddenly paused when he arrived beside the Human Emperor's palace. With a thought of his spirit consciousness, a blank long scroll flew out from the Human Emperor's palace. The living beings of the 10,000 races looked at everything with lost expressions. Nobody knew what the Human Emperor's intentions were. As for the Palace Guardian, he seemed to have realized something as he came beside the Human Emperor and whispered, "Master, should I write it?" "No." The Human Emperor shook his head. "I want to write it personally." The Palace Guardian nodded and handed the Human Emperor's brush over respectfully. The Human Emperor channeled his essence spirit and the Human Emperor's brush landed on the battlefield, absorbing the blood of the experts of the primordial races like the heavenly god Emperor. The silver tip of the brush turned blood red before long. Controlling the Human Emperor's brush, the Human Emperor waved it wildly and wrote on the blank long scroll. One after another, massive words landed on the paper. Every single word was written with the blood of the emperors of the primordial races and was filled with a torrential killing intent that was chilling to the bones. Although the Human Emperor did not have a physical body, each time he wrote a word, his voice would echo through the firmaments in a deafening manner. The human race is weakened and emperors are useless. The accusation that emperors were useless in his first sentence was extremely heavy. It was referring to the emperors of the human race who hid in the ancient battlefield and did not dare to show themselves. Only the Human Emperor had the authority and qualifications to reprimand the emperors of the human race. I heard that Desolate Marshal rose in Tianhuang Mainland and established the Martial Dao to bring blessings to all living beings. I, the Human Emperor, have decided to pass my title to Desolate Marshal. Once he is conferred the title of Emperor, he will become the Human Emperor and reign over the world. A loud voice spread through Tianhuang Mainland and reverberated through the world. The world was shaken. The experts of Enigma Palace were even more shocked with aghast expressions of disbelief. Throughout history, the human race had many emperors and some powerful monster incarnates. However, none of them dared to refer to themselves as the human emperor. In the hearts of all humans, there was only a single human emperor. But now, the human emperor had actually given a Dharmic edict personally to pass down the title to Desolate Marshal. Although Desolate Marshal was only a Mahayana Patriarch right now, once he was conferred the title of emperor, he would be the new human emperor and be respected by the world. Instantly, a mysterious noble might descended onto Su Zimo's body. Although he was only at the Mahayana realm, it released a powerful pressure. An endless amount of mysterious power gathered towards Su Zimo. That power could not be seen with the naked eye. Only the patriarchs and emperors present could sense it with their powerful spirit consciousnesses. The fortune of the world is gathered because the human emperor passed down his title. The Qin Dragon Emperor murmured softly, "The human emperor sure is capable." By gathering the fortune of the world, one's cultivation speed would become extremely terrifying and they would receive many blessings, the Kun Empress said. However, fortune and opportunities go hand in hand with life and death calamities. Gathering the fortune of the world means that Desolate Marshal has to endure an unimaginable calamity. It's not so easy to become the human emperor. The barbarian emperor nodded as well. The human emperor created such a huge commotion by imparting his title to a Mahayana patriarch with a personal Dharmic edict. This will definitely incur the jealousy of other patriarchs and even emperors of the human race. Pausing for a moment, he grinned. We don't know if the human emperor's actions will bring about blessings or calamities for Desolate Marshal. He. The Qin Dragon Emperor laughed. Do you guys think that the human emperor didn't think of that? What does that mean? The barbarian emperor and Kun Empress asked. The Qin Dragon Emperor said, the reason why the human emperor passed down his title was to let the world and the emperors of the human race see it. The position of the human emperor is just an empty title. It doesn't matter whether Desolate Marshal will be conferred the title of the human emperor in the future. The human emperor's intention is to gather the fortune of the world for Desolate Marshal so that he can endure the calamity. In fact, he wants Desolate Marshal to be put tempered because of the emperors of the human race. That's the human emperor's true intention. The barbarian emperor and Kun Empress's hearts skipped a beat. In midair, the Dharmic edict of the human emperor shone with an endless blood light and a chilling killing intent. Every single word was extremely clear and emitted a terrifying aura. The human emperor's spirit consciousness moved and the gigantic human emperor's seal landed at the end of the Dharmic edict, leaving a mark. My young friend Desolate Marshal, I'll leave this Dharmic edict and human emperor's seal for you. The human emperor rolled up the Dharmic edict and threw it to Su Zimo along with the human emperor's seal. He then roared in laughter and turned to leave. My young friend Desolate Marshal, I'll be waiting for you in the upper world. The human emperor's voice sounded. I hope that we'll meet again in the upper world. At that time, let's fight side by side. The human emperor's essence spirit entered the crack that shone with a blinding light and vanished. The human emperor's Dharmic edict and human emperor's seal descended as well. Su Zimo received them. At that moment, the world shook. The endless fortune of the 8 desolates gathered toward Su Zimo wildly and even materialized into streams of dragon chi. Dragon roars sounded repeatedly and the might of the Emperor Dao spread. That was a fortune that only the human emperor could endure. However, Su Zimo was unyielding. Wielding the human emperor's Dharmic edict in his left hand and the human emperor's seal in his right, his gaze was cold and unparalleled. All the living beings of the 10,000 races lowered their heads and no one dared to meet his gaze. Chapter 1654, Arrival of the Prime Body. Chapter 1654 Arrival of the Prime Body. Although the human emperor left, he wrote the human emperor's Dharmic edict personally and passed it down to Su Zimo alongside the human emperor's seal, gathering the fortune of the world. At that moment, although Su Zimo was only at the Mahayana realm, he had already exuded the aura of an emperor. His aura was immense as he looked down on the world. "Greetings, human emperor." The storyteller cupped his fists toward Su Zimo and bowed first. The storyteller was the current mystic emperor. Now that the mystic emperor took the lead to greet, the remaining 5 emperors bowed hurriedly with respectful expressions. If that was the case for the 6 emperors, it did not matter if the other cultivators were unwilling, dissatisfied, jealous or indignant. At that moment, all of them felt immense pressure and knelt down one after another. This was the situation. Now that the human emperor had passed down his title, the trend was on Su Zimo's side. "Seniors, there's no need for that." Su Zimo put away the human emperor's dermic edict and human emperor's seal and hurried forward. He raised the storyteller's arms and said, "I don't deserve the title of the human emperor. Be it in the ancient era or this generation, there is only a single human emperor. If I become an emperor in the future, I won't be called the human emperor either." That was Su Zimo's respect for the eternal human emperor. In the hearts of him and the living beings of the 10,000 races, there was only a single human emperor. "Senior Mystic Emperor, I hope that you guys will continue hosting this 10,000 race meet," Su Zimo said in a deep voice. "Of course." The storyteller nodded. "Everyone of the primordial races, do you have any objections to the 10,000 race meet continuing?" The storyteller looked at the witch clan leader and the others and asked in a deep voice. "No objections." The clan leaders of the witch and heavenly eye races shook their heads. The arrival of the human emperor changed the situation completely. All the primordial races were scared out of their wits and had yet to break free from their fears. Who would dare to object? "Hey!" Suddenly, Little Fatty leaped out and pointed in the direction of the witch and golden crow races, shouting, "The 10,000 race meet shall continue. Where are the emperors of your primordial 6 races? Why aren't there any emperors? Perhaps they're scared out of their wits?" Shi Jian muttered at the side. Rolling his eyes, Little Fatty pouted his lips. "That means they aren't that capable after all and are just a bunch of cowards. I thought they must have been strong given how arrogant they were earlier on." The 2 of them echoed one after another and the expressions of the clan leaders of the primordial 6 races turned extremely terrible. Earlier on, they humiliated the human race and mocked them for being cowardly rats. But now, karma had reversed. When the eternal human emperor descended, the heavenly god emperor, Hell Witch Emperor and the others were either dead and injured. Even with the human emperor's departure, the remaining emperors of the primordial 6 races were so scared that they hid in the forbidden grounds and did not dare to appear. The human emperor had only just left, who knew if he had anything else up his sleeves? The arrival of the human emperor this time round dealt serious damage to the primordial 6 races. Apart from the few emperors who died on the surface, more than that, it was an invisible intimidation. The god clan leader coughed gently. "As the clan leaders of the primordial races, we can make complete decisions at the 10,000 race meet." "Right, right." The witch clan leader and the others nodded hurriedly as well. The storyteller glanced at the god clan leader indifferently. "The 10,000 race meet can continue, but the god race won't be included." The god clan leader's expression changed. The storyteller said, "Once the 10,000 races are done with our discussion, we'll decide on the matter of the god race." The god clan leader did not dare to refute. "Chendragon Emperor, Barbarian Emperor, Kuan Empress, what do you guys think?" The storyteller turned and looked at the Chendragon Emperor and the other 2 before asking. His attitude was clearly mellower. It was especially so for the Chendragon Emperor whom the storyteller bore immense respect. If not for the Chendragon Emperor, the heavenly god emperor and the others would have attacked without any reservations at the 10,000 race meet this time round. But now that the Hell Witch and Golden Crow Fire Emperors were severely injured and had to escape, although the Qin Dragon Emperor was old, he was also the strongest emperor in Tianhuang mainland. I've got no objections. The Qin Dragon Emperor nodded. The storyteller looked at the few demon emperors and living beings of the 10,000 races at the side and said in a deep voice, "Since that's the case, the 10,000 race meet shall continue." Although the human emperor had descended, the strength of the human race in this generation was still far inferior compared to the primordial races. If he pushed the primordial races too far, it would only backfire. Right now, the human race could not fight against the primordial races. The storyteller still made the suggestion of coexisting with the 10,000 races. Apart from the god race, the territory of the primordial 8 races could be expanded. The beings of the primordial races no longer had to live ignobly and could roam Tianhuang mainland freely. However, they could not kill the living beings of the 10,000 races wantonly. The 10,000 races had to coexist on Tianhuang mainland in a peaceful manner. Although killing and fighting could happen, they could not kill wantonly or bully and enslave the weaker races for no reason. The Qin Dragon Emperor, Barbarian Emperor and Kuan Empress were satisfied with this suggestion as well. The remaining 5 primordial races had even less objections. Following that was the gathering of the 10,000 races to discuss how to divide the territories. This was an extremely detailed, complicated and massive project that would take days and nights to finalize. Su Zimo was not interested in such things. At that moment, his eyes were closed and he was already roaming with his essence spirit. Heaven expanding mountain range. A purple-robed cultivator arrived. The cultivator's face was shrouded by a layer of fog and his features could not be seen clearly. However, he exuded an aura as though he was a lord that looked down on the world and was unstoppable. The martial Dao prime body had descended. The martial Dao prime body surveyed the surroundings and sensed for a moment before walking in a direction at an unhurried speed. However, in the blink of an eye, the martial Dao prime body crossed the entire heaven-expanding mountain range and arrived at an inconspicuous corner at the outer perimeter of the mountain range. The surroundings were lush with vegetation and ancient trees with luxuriant leaves. The martial Dao prime body descended and retracted his aura, as though he had already fused into the world. It was as though he was the wind of this world and the vegetation around him. At that moment, even if someone stood in front of the martial Dao prime body with their eyes closed, even if they released their spirit consciousness, they wouldn't be able to sense his existence. In the depths of this corner, there was a dark cave. The martial Dao prime body smiled gently and walked towards the cave. In the cave, a white-robed man was in a lotus position. His fingertip touched the ground and his entire finger turned scarlet. The white-robed man closed his eyes and calmed his mind, carefully refining the bloodlines here. The bloodlines left behind at the battlefield of Enigma Palace were the strongest. However, he did not dare to touch them lest he alarmed the many emperors at Enigma Palace. Countless living beings of the heaven-expanding mountain range died in the battle between the emperors as well. At that moment, the white-robed man was refining the bloodlines of those living beings. The human emperor's mirror was an emperor weapon. However, he was only at the half-martial ancestor realm. In order to help the human race tide through the calamity earlier on, he forcefully activated the human emperor's mirror and suffered a huge backlash. Under normal circumstances, such an injury would require at least a few days of recuperation for it to heal. However, he could make use of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra to refine his bloodline and absorb essence chi continuously. His recovery speed was extremely shocking and was many times faster. Chapter 1655, Showdown. Chapter 1655 Showdown. About an hour later, the white-robed man let out a long breath. His injuries had already healed. Most importantly, he could already sense the opportunity to advance to the Mahayana realm. The white-robed man opened his eyes and was prepared to leave this place to look for a safe and secluded place to break through to the Mahayana realm. However, the moment he opened his eyes, his pupils constricted. Even with his calm personality, his expression changed. There was someone standing not far away from him. There was a purple-robed cultivator whose face was shrouded by a layer of fog, and even he could not see through it with his eyes. Monk Daming released his spirit consciousness and scanned the purple-robed cultivator, feeling even more guarded. Up till this point of his cultivation, the strength of his spirit consciousness was even stronger than some ordinary Mahayana patriarchs. Even so, despite his powerful spirit consciousness, he could not detect the purple-robed cultivator's appearance through the fog. He could only detect that the purple-robed mysterious man before him was also a half-martial ancestor expert. Apart from that, he knew nothing else. That was not the most important thing. What truly shocked the white-robed man was that he did not notice when the mysterious person appeared. For half-martial ancestors, the distance of a few feet between them was almost negligible. In other words, if the purple-robed mysterious man had any ill intentions and attacked him earlier on, there was a 50% chance that he would have been injured. However, there was another half of the possibility. The moment the purple-robed mysterious man attacked, he might have been able to sense it and react by counterattacking forcefully. Therefore, in the eyes of the white-robed man, although the purple-robed cultivator was mysterious and had the initiative, he was not a threat just yet. He was confident. At the half-martial ancestor realm, nobody was a match for him. "How long have you been here?" The white-robed man composed himself swiftly and rose, asking indifferently. "Less than an hour." The purple-robed mysterious man, the martial Tao prime body, replied. The voice of the martial Tao prime body was intentionally altered as well. "You came to look for me?" The white-robed man asked again. "Yes." The martial Tao prime body said. The white-robed man narrowed his eyes and a crack appeared on the vertical eye on his glabella, emitting a powerful might he wanted to see through the fog on the face of the martial Tao prime body. However, he still found nothing after staring for a while. The white-robed man tried his best to recall but could not find any information that matched the mysterious person before him. He believed that he had never seen this person before. If he had seen such a special person before, he would definitely remember the latter firmly. "I don't know you. You're looking for the wrong person," the white-robed man said. The martial Tao prime body smiled gently. "It's fine if you don't know me. I know you." "Oh?" The white-robed man smiled as well and asked, "You know who I am?" "Monk Daming." The martial Tao prime body said slowly. Although the white-robed man was expressionless when he heard that, his heart stirred. The white-robed man was Monk Daming. He was careful in his actions after returning from this generation and planned everything carefully such that no one knew his true identity. In fact, nobody had even seen him before. Even if anyone saw him, they would not recognize him. That was because he was someone who should have died 40,000 years ago. However, Monk Daming had not expected that the mysterious person before him would expose his identity with a single sentence. "Why are you looking for me?" Monk Daming asked instead as a silent acknowledgement of his identity. "To kill you." The moment the martial Tao prime body said that, the temperature in the cave dipped. Monk Daming smiled gently and was not vexed in the slightest. He asked again, "Since you arrived long ago and you want to kill me, why didn't you do it earlier on?" "I was waiting for you to recover." The martial Tao prime body said, "You're injured. I won't feel anything if I kill you that way." "Foo-foo, interesting." This time round, Monk Daming laughed. He had lived for 40,000 years and there had never been anyone who could speak with such arrogance before him. While the mysterious man wanted him dead, he wanted to do it after he had fully recovered. Monk Daming said coldly, "When you didn't attack while I was injured, you had already lost your final chance." Before his sentence was finished, Monk Daming chanted Sanskrit. Om. Ma. Ni. Pa. Mi. Ham. It was the ultimate skill of Daming Monastery, the Daming Mantra. At the same time, Monk Daming's palm conjured hand seals repeatedly. Coupled with the 6 words of the Daming Mantra, he released 6 incomparably powerful dermic seals. Fiend Suppression Seal, Demon Subduing Seal, Immortal Trap Seal, Immovable Foundation Seal, Great Vajra Seal and the Great Mount Meru Seal. The 6 dermic seals descended with terrifying might and enveloped the martial Dao Prime Body. The martial Dao Prime Body did not make any motions and strode forward. He extended his palm and clenched it into a fist, punching towards the 6 dermic seals at the front. Break! At the same time, the martial Dao Prime Body shouted. His voice was like thunder and exploded. Although it was only a single word, it suppressed the sound of the 6 words of the Daming Mantra. Boom! The fist of the martial Dao Prime Body collided with the 6 dermic seals and let out a loud bang, collapsing them instantly. Monk Daming's gaze froze. The mysterious person did not release any dermic arts or even circulate his blood chi. He merely punched with his body and destroyed the Daming dermic seals. This mysterious person was extremely strong. However, Monk Daming had a fearless expression. He believed that he was invincible among half-martial ancestors. It was rare for him to meet such an opponent. Monk Daming's eyes burned with fighting spirit as he charged towards the martial Dao Prime Body in a flash. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them were inches apart. Monk Daming was prepared to fight the martial Dao Prime Body in melee combat. Develop a mind that abides nowhere. He murmured softly and released Diamond Monastery's secret skill right away. Dong! Monk Daming's chest thumped with a dull thud, as though an ancient divine being was beating a gigantic drum. The sound was deep, powerful and shuddering. His heart shone brightly. That single thump released his extremely terrifying bloodline that surged to his limbs and organs instantly. Splash! The sound of tsunami blood echoed from Monk Daming's body. In fact, his body was veiled by a layer of golden divine Buddhist light. At that moment, Monk Daming seemed to have transformed into an ancient Buddha. He was unparalleled and his dermic powers were boundless. His might was terrifying and he wanted to subdue all demons. Splash! When the martial Dao Prime Body channeled his bloodline, he reached the tsunami blood realm as well. Boom! The martial Dao Prime Body had an indifferent expression and was fearless against the divine might of Monk Daming. When he attacked once more, it was still a simple punch. Boom! Monk Daming punched out as well. There was a loud bang. Their fists collided violently and released an extremely terrifying halo of power that caused the entire cave to tremble. Sand and gravel rolled down endlessly. Monk Daming grunted and took half a step back. The martial Dao Prime Body's expression was unchanged as he took a half step forward. Like a shadow, he punched out once more with a ferocity like fire. Lu. Nor. Monk Daming could only defend with his fist. Boom. Another loud bang sounded. Monk Daming retreated once more and the golden light on his body swayed before dimming rapidly. Chapter 1656, Complete Suppression. Chapter 1656 Complete Suppression. Enigma Palace. Although Su Zimo's other 2 true bodies seemed like they were resting with their eyes closed, their minds were already immersed in the heaven-expanding mountain range and sensing the battle that broke out in a corner. Ever since Monk Daming appeared, the Green Lotus true body had been manipulated by him. The 2 of them exchanged blows once before and the Green Lotus true body suffered a crushing defeat as well. Later on, Monk Daming even used the conflict between the Green Lotus true body and Enigma Palace to infiltrate Enigma Palace and steal the mystic firmament record of Enigma Palace. The feeling Monk Daming gave Su Zimo was always unfathomable. In fact, he did not even know how strong Monk Daming truly was. On the one hand, the martial Tao Prime Body sought out Monk Daming this time round to test the latter's strength. On the other hand, he wanted to verify his own progress. The martial Tao Prime Body had already reached the half-martial ancestor realm and was only half a step away from entering the Mahayana realm. He needed a powerful opponent to temper his martial Tao. For the martial Tao Prime Body, Monk Daming was a perfect opponent. Therefore, the reason why the martial Tao Prime Body waited for Monk Daming to recover was because he did not want to take advantage of the latter. The reason why he said that he wanted to kill Monk Daming was because he wanted Monk Daming to use his full strength without holding back at all. Su Zimo knew Monk Daming very well. Monk Daming was way too scheming. If he had not displayed extreme hostility, Monk Daming would not reveal all his trump cards and methods. Of course, this battle was also because Su Zimo had pent-up frustrations in his heart. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had overwhelmed strong foes and was invincible among his peers. However, he was repeatedly disadvantaged against Monk Daming. The reason why the martial Tao Prime Body looked for Monk Daming this time round was also to vent this frustration. Furthermore, Monk Daming admitted that he did harbor killing intent towards Su Zimo. It was not overboard for the martial Tao Prime Body to give Monk Daming a scare. Within the cave, the martial Tao Prime Body and Monk Daming channeled their bloodlines to the Tsunami Blood Realm and exchanged 2 punches. Monk Daming retreated consecutively and even his Diamond Heart secret skill nearly collapsed. A look of shock flashed through Monk Daming's eyes. He had cultivated many body-tempering dermic formulations. 40,000 years ago, there was no one who could suppress him in melee combat. Now that he had returned and obtained the help of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra as well as many cultivation techniques, he was many times stronger than before. However, he could not gain any advantage against this purple-robed mysterious man. A look of admiration flashed through the eyes of the martial Tao Prime Body as well. Monk Daming was indeed strong. Although the martial Tao Prime Body did not use his full strength, even ordinary Mahayana Patriarchs might not have been able to defend against the 2 punches earlier on. While Monk Daming was retreating, he made use of the momentum of his retreat to neutralize most of the power and shift it underground without suffering any damage. A few deep footprints appeared beneath Monk Daming's feet. Even the martial Tao Prime Body had not seen such a secret skill that could deflect power in such a manner. Indeed, he has some means. It's no wonder why he dared to look for me. A warm smile appeared on Monk Daming's face. Monk Daming looked at the martial Tao Prime Body with deep eyes that resembled the starry skies. They seemed to contain endless secrets that made one want to explore and fall into them. The martial Tao Prime Body said indifferently, "Don't bother trying to play with such illusion techniques and secret skills." Monk Daming had an extremely deep understanding of illusion techniques. He was the one who set up the illusion formation in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. At that time, Monk Daming was only at the Dharma characteristic realm. However, many conjoint body mighty figures could not break free from it, and even the Green Lotus True Body was not spared. Only, such secret skills were child's play for the martial Tao Prime Body. Interesting. Monk Daming flicked his finger and smiled. His gaze intensified and his bloodline climbed once more. A tsunami surged within his body and an extremely shocking phenomenon appeared behind him. It was an endless blood sea that was extremely evil. It was as though a supreme fiend was born within the blood sea. However, there was a sacred ancient Buddha floating on the blood sea. It was filled with golden light and its gaze was benevolent, as though it wanted to enlighten all living beings. The 2 opposing auras fused perfectly in the bloodline phenomenon, forming a powerful visual and mental impact. Monk Daming released his bloodline phenomenon and walked towards the martial Tao Prime Body. The eyes of the martial Tao Prime Body burned like 2 flames. His entire body seemed to have vanished and in its place was a gigantic furnace. Swoosh! Flames surged within the furnace and incinerated everything. Before Monk Daming could approach, he felt a scorching aura and his skin burned in pain. In fact, the blood sea behind him was already boiling. The stone walls around the cave had already begun to melt, turning into scorching lava that emitted thick smoke as it flowed down slowly. Boom! The martial Tao prime body attacked once more and punched out. More. That punch burned with blazing flames, as though a volcano had burst forth and released an extremely terrifying power that arrived instantly. Monk Daming's expression finally changed. When he released his bloodline phenomenon, his strength increased exponentially. However, he did not expect that the mysterious person's bloodline phenomenon would be even more terrifying. Even his bloodline phenomenon was showing signs of dispersing. Boom! Monk Daming punched the martial Tao prime body once more. Crack! 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 The golden light on Monk Daming's body shattered and dimmed completely. The diamond heart was destroyed by a single punch from the martial Tao prime body. Bang! 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 The martial Tao prime body closed in step by step and threw out punches one after another. Monk Daming waved his fists and clashed as well. He retreated continuously and used his secret skill to neutralize the power of the martial Tao prime body. The power released by each punch of the martial Tao prime body was way too ferocious. It was as violent as fire, as turbulent as the ocean and as heavy as mountains. Even Monk Daming felt suffocated. However, he knew very well that the toll on the power of the martial Tao prime body was definitely immense. As long as time passed and the martial Tao prime body's blood chi deteriorated and his strength could not sustain further, that would be his chance to retaliate. However, 10 breaths passed. Although the martial Tao prime body punched out dozens of times, his strength did not show any signs of depleting. Instead, his punches were fiercer and more powerful than before, as though there was no limit to them. Initially, Monk Daming could even make use of his secret skill to deflect most of the power of the martial Tao prime body. Later on, the power released by the martial Tao prime body was way too ferocious and massive that even his secret skill could not deflect it. Boom! Another loud bang sounded. The bloodline phenomenon behind Monk Daming was shattered by the fist of the martial Tao prime body and the martial Tao furnace. Swoosh! Monk Daming's figure flashed and he no longer fought the martial Tao prime body head-on. He strode with mysterious steps and circled around the ladder. This was a footwork from the Mystic Firmament record, created by Fairy Ling Long and was naturally extremely mysterious. A few consecutive punches from the martial Tao prime body missed completely. The martial Tao prime body closed his eyes and shut down his 5 senses. With his powerful spirit perception, he sensed Monk Daming's location and landing spot and attacked once more. This time round, Monk Daming had nowhere to run. Monk Daming condensed a secret skill and released more than 1,000 palm shadows with both hands, colliding with the martial Tao prime body's punch. Boom! The dermic art dissipated. The fist of the martial Tao prime body did not stop and flew towards Monk Daming's head. Suddenly, a gigantic ancient temple descended in front of Monk Daming. Boom! The fist of the martial Tao prime body struck the ancient temple heavily. The ancient temple trembled and dust fell endlessly with a creaking sound. Chapter 1657, Blood Refinement Fiend Saber. Chapter 1657 Blood Refinement Fiend Saber. Although the fight between both parties was short, an extremely terrifying power burst forth with each collision. If ordinary Mahayana patriarchs descended, even they would be shocked by that power. Right from the beginning, the martial Tao prime body had maintained an absolute suppression of Monk Daming. Monk Daming cultivated many complicated cultivation techniques and dermic formulations that were top secret skills of the super sections. However, when those dermic arts were released, they were shattered by the fist of the martial Tao prime body. He could break all dermic arts with brute force. The body of the martial Tao prime body was a martial Tao furnace that was tempered with the martial spirit fire all year round, smelting all dermic arts, nurturing 100 sutras, tempering his tendons, bones and bloodline. It was incomparably strong. Monk Daming could not hold on any longer and summoned his destiny dermic weapon, the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, right away. His Grand Primordium Ancient Temple had a powerful origin and was most likely a treasure that fell from the upper world. Even the dermic treasures used by Mahayana Patriarchs could not penetrate it. However, the punch from the martial Tao prime body caused the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple to tremble violently. Take out your dermic weapon. Monk Daming controlled the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple with one hand and the Human Emperor's mirror with the other as he said sternly. "Ah!" The martial Tao prime body roared in laughter. "I don't have dermic weapons. My physical fist is my dermic weapon." Before his laughter ended, the martial Tao prime body strode forward and threw another punch towards Monk Daming's head. Monk Daming fought using the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Boom! There was a loud bang. At the same time, Monk Daming channeled the Human Emperor's mirror in his hands and released a divine light that charged towards the martial Tao prime body. Although the Human Emperor's mirror was the strongest in defense, it could also release powerful attacks. Furthermore, the Human Emperor's mirror had just left the hands of the eternal Human Emperor and there was a hint of the might of an emperor still on it. The divine light penetrated the void and descended before the martial Tao prime body instantly. Dong! The martial Tao prime body did not have time to dodge and was struck on the chest by the divine light with a dull thud. It was as though the attack had struck a furnace. The martial Tao prime body's expression was unchanged. Although his robes were torn when he was struck by the Human Emperor's mirror, there were no injuries on his chest. Monk Daming's gaze froze. He could vaguely see through the chest of the martial Tao prime body that the latter's body contained an endless brilliance of runes, as though flames were burning. It was hard to imagine what sort of Tao and dermic arts were condensed in his body such that even the Human Emperor's mirror could not hurt him. The most shocking thing for Monk Daming was that up till this point of the battle, he could not see the background of this person. This person's cultivation technique did not seem to belong to the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sections. However, it was extremely terrifying. Furthermore, he could tell that the mysterious person was not trying to hit his cultivation technique background intentionally. This person merely punched back and forth without much variation. However, every single punch contained countless Tao techniques, possessed terrifying might and ferocious aura. The powerful will contained in every single punch even affected his mental state. Every single punch that rained down brought forth immense pressure for Monk Daming. Monk Daming released his trump cards continuously and his strength increased. However, what made him feel powerless was that the mysterious person's power was rising as well, as though it was limitless. Even he could not escape even if he wanted to. In the battle, there were many times when he wanted to leave and flee far away. However, he was blocked by the purple-robed mysterious men each time. That person's movement technique was shockingly fast as well. This was the first time he felt troubled since he started cultivating. Even when he faced that great enemy 40,000 years ago, he did not feel this way. The punches of the martial Tao prime body intensified. Monk Daming retreated continuously. In the end, he did not even have room to dodge. Just who in the world are you? Monk Daming narrowed his eyes and a blood glint shone with killing intent. The martial Tao prime body did not reply and attacked even more viciously. Your cultivation isn't easy and you're strong. You're definitely a peerless monster incarnate. Monk Daming had a conflicted expression. I didn't want to kill you initially, but I don't want to nor can I die. I have something more important to do. The moment he said that, Monk Daming's eyes turned blood-colored. An extremely evil aura emanated from his body and he was filled with a foul stench of blood. Monk Daming's fingernails scratched his wrist. Shing! Blood splattered. Before it landed on the ground, Monk Daming gathered everything into his hands and a blood-colored saber was condensed. The blood flow on the saber was extremely evil, as though it was alive. Slash! Monk Daming swung his blood-colored saber and slashed towards the Martial Dao Prime body. The Martial Dao Prime body's expression was unchanged as he continued punching. Swoosh! The punch did not cause much of a stir when it struck the blood-colored saber. It seemed as though the blood-colored saber was snapped by a single punch from the Martial Dao Prime body. All the blood spread and splashed onto the Martial Dao Prime body instantly. Amitba. Monk Daming looked at the Martial Dao Prime body and chanted a Buddhist proclamation before activating the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. The bloodline that splattered on the Martial Dao Prime body contained an extremely terrifying power, as though it wanted to withdraw the bloodline in his body. The Martial Dao Prime body exclaimed softly and nodded. This fiend technique is indeed powerful. When Monk Daming released the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, the bloodline of the Martial Dao Prime body stirred. If it was anyone else, they would have been refined into a dry corpse by Monk Daming instantly. Monk Daming's eyes were filled with shock as well. Given his comprehension of the fiend technique, as long as he channeled a mental cultivation technique, he could suck dry the bloodlines of some half-martial ancestor experts with a single breath. But now, even after condensing the Blood Refinement Fiend saber and slashing it on the purple-robed mysterious man, he could not absorb and refine the latter's bloodline. Furthermore, from the relaxed state of the person, it seemed like the latter was not affected much. Refine. Right then, the Martial Dao Prime body said slowly. The flames in his body intensified and the martial spirit fire burned furiously, turning his body crystalline red. The filthy blood that splashed onto his body began to evaporate. In fact, tragic wails could be heard from the filthy blood. Countless ghostly figures struggled around the Martial Dao Prime body but they could not break free no matter what. In the blink of an eye, they were refined into nothingness. The filthy blood on the Martial Dao Prime body was refined completely as well. His body was flawless as his blood chi surged with a torrential might. His aura turned even stronger and heatwave surged as though it wanted to smelt everything. If that's all you've got, you'll die today. The Martial Dao Prime body's tone was cold as he strode towards Monk Daming. He raised his fist and punched towards the latter like a gigantic fireball. Chapter 1658 Fall. Chapter 1658 Fall. Monk Daming lowered his head and his long hair swayed gently. Suddenly, the blood scar on his glabella split open and revealed a blood-colored heavenly eye. It was horrific, sinister and extremely terrifying, like the eye of an evil spirit and filled with a shuddering aura. Instantly, everything in the Martial Dao Prime body's vision seemed to have vanished. The only thing left was the blood-colored heavenly eye. The Eye of Death. This was the number one and strongest visual technique dermic formulation of the Heavenly Eye race. Throughout history, there had been many Heavenly Eye race beings who cultivated this visual technique. However, only a rare few managed to cultivate it successfully. In order to cultivate the Eye of Death, the young master of the Heavenly Eye race, Savage Eye, even blinded himself at the start of his cultivation and could not see light for life. Among the Heavenly Eye race, the last person to cultivate the Eye of Death traced back to 40,000 years ago. Unfortunately, that child's bloodline was impure and was a remnant of the Heavenly Eye race. Although the term remnant sounded alright, in the eyes of the Heavenly Eye race, he was nothing but a bastard child. This young child was bullied and nearly died in the Heavenly Eye race. In the end, he was saved by an accomplished monk of Daming Monastery who passed by. The latter took him in without any disdain for his bloodline. Later on, this young child became the titular disciple of Daming Monastery who shook the entire Tianhuang mainland, Monk Daming. The expression of the martial Tao prime body beneath the fog finally turned grim. The reason why the Eye of Death was incomparably strong was because not only did the visual technique contain the power of the visual technique, it would also cause an immense impact to the essence spirit. An ordinary visual technique was equivalent to a dermic art. This visual technique was a fusion of dermic arts and essence spirit's secret skills. However, even the Eye of Death could not threaten the martial Tao prime body. What truly shocked the martial Tao prime body was that although Monk Daming's visual technique used the Eye of Death as a foundation, it was in fact superior to the Eye of Death. There was another power in that visual technique. In other words, Monk Daming had created a visual technique that surpassed the Eye of Death. Two blazing flames burst forth from the eyes of the martial Tao prime body and charged towards the visual technique. This visual technique was born from the Illumination Dragon Eye. The martial Tao prime body refined many visual techniques to transform and refine this visual technique, allowing it to push the power of fire to its limits. Boom! The two visual techniques burst forth and collided instantly. Against the Eye of Death, the two flames released by the eyes of the martial Tao prime body dimmed and extinguished before long. Monk Daming's Eye of Death was way too terrifying. The moment the martial Tao prime body released his visual technique, he realized that it would be difficult for his visual technique to go against the Eye of Death. Therefore, the martial Tao prime body blocked with his hands right away. At the same time, the martial spirit fire appeared in the consciousness of the martial Tao prime body and shielded his essence spirit. Bang! The beam of the Eye of Death landed on the palms of the martial Tao prime body. The skin on the martial Tao prime body's palms began to corrode instantly. However, his blood qi surged and he suppressed the power of the Eye of Death tightly, preventing his injuries from expanding. A blood-colored beam of light appeared in the consciousness of the martial Tao prime body and charged towards his essence spirit. Before it arrived, it was burned to ashes by the martial spirit fire. Monk Daming frowned slightly and his body swayed. The blood scar on his glabella closed once more. The heavenly eye was finally closed. At that moment, the world seemed to have returned to normal. The dead silence vanished. Lifeforce returned. Even if ordinary essence spirit secret skills merely made contact with the martial spirit fire, the cultivator's essence spirit would be severely injured. However, Monk Daming managed to defend with just a mere slight shift in expression. That visual technique is your trump card, right? It's indeed very strong. The martial Tao prime body nodded slightly and praised from the bottom of his heart. Back in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, the Green Lotus True Body released an essence spirit secret skill and the Green Lotus sword slashed into Monk Daming's glabella without dealing any damage. It was clear how terrifying that heavenly eye was. Monk Daming was expressionless. Are you mocking me? No. The martial Tao prime body opened his palm. Although his palm was a little rotten, the injury on his palm had healed rapidly in that short period of time due to the surge of his powerful blood qi. Up till this point of my cultivation, I've never been injured. The martial Tao prime body said, you should feel proud that your visual technique can hurt me. Monk Daming smiled bitterly. Although it was a statement praising him, there was an indescribable confidence and boldness in it. Monk Daming felt a little bitter. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had only lost once 40,000 years ago. That failure was the greatest humiliation of his life. However, even for that battle 40,000 years ago, the outcome of the battle was only decided at the end and it was a tragic victory for the other party as well. When Monk Daming returned this time round, he was much stronger than he was 40,000 years ago. To think that he would come across such a mysterious monster incarnate. Furthermore, his defeat this time round was even worse. You're not from Tianhuang Mainland? Monk Daming's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly asked. He knew some secrets. In this vast world, there were many worlds like Tianhuang Mainland. The cultivation techniques of this monster incarnate were special and no legacies could be seen. There was a high chance that this person was from another world. I'm from Tianhuang Mainland. The martial Dao Prime Body said. However, I've never seen anyone as capable as you. Monk Daming frowned slightly. The martial Dao Prime Body smiled and did not say anything, walking towards Monk Daming. Are you going to kill me? Monk Daming's expression was calm. He had long seen through life and death. He should have died 40,000 years ago. The only thing he could not let go was something else. You're very strong. Monk Daming said, however, you're not strong enough. As a mere half-martial ancestor, slightly stronger patriarchs are enough to suppress you. Furthermore, there's an even more terrifying existence in Tianhuang Mainland. You must be careful and not let him notice you. Dao Lord Blood Fiend from 40,000 years ago? The martial Dao Prime Body asked instead. Monk Daming narrowed his eyes slightly and did not reply directly. You sure know a lot of secrets. However, things are much more complicated and terrifying than you can imagine. The martial Dao Prime Body smiled and arrived before Monk Daming, extending his palm. Monk Daming sighed internally and closed his eyes. Immediately, Monk Daming felt his waist lighten, as though his storage bag had been removed. He opened his eyes and saw that the martial Dao Prime Body had taken away his storage bag. The martial Dao Prime Body channeled the martial spirit fire and wiped away the spirit consciousness on the storage bag. He opened the storage bag and took a look inside. Mystic Firmament Record. The martial Dao Prime Body caught sight of the secret skill of Enigma Palace right away. This is a cultivation technique of Enigma Palace. When you're done reading it, please return it to Enigma Palace. Monk Daming thought that he was bound to die and sighed. He was also prepared to return the Mystic Firmament Record. That's for sure. The martial Dao Prime Body smiled. Chapter 1659, 9 Latent Dangers in Tianhuang Mainland. Chapter 1659 Latent Dangers in Tianhuang Mainland. Apart from the Mystic Firmament Record, there were many other cultivation techniques and secret skills in the storage bag. Most of them were from the 6 Buddhist monasteries. Some of those cultivation techniques were top-tier dermic formulations and secret skills. However, many of them were simple ancient sutras or incantations to calm one's mind. Monk Daming's storage bag was almost filled with those Buddhist cultivation techniques. Why are you collecting so many ancient books of the Buddhist sects? The martial Dao Prime Body asked. If Monk Daming wanted to raise his cultivation, all he had to do was cultivate top-tier Buddhist cultivation techniques. However, his storage bag was mostly filled with non-offensive Buddhist sutras. Those Buddhist sutras were used to impart teachings to some monks of the mortal world. Although the martial Dao Prime Body smelted all dermic arts, those sutras were way too inferior for him and he would not spend any effort reading them. Given Monk Daming's frightening intelligence, there was no way he would do something so meaningless. Monk Daming remained silent when he heard the question of the martial Dao Prime Body. The martial Dao Prime Body checked his storage bag and put away a few top-tier cultivation techniques of the Buddhist monasteries before throwing the storage bag to Monk Daming. Monk Daming frowned slightly and hesitated. After I read through these cultivation techniques, I'll naturally return them to their owners. The martial Dao Prime Body seemed to be able to read Monk Daming's mind and said. You should be about to advance to the Mahayana realm. The martial Dao Prime Body smiled gently. I'll wait for you at the front. If you're indignant about today's defeat, we'll fight again. With that said, he turned and walked into the distance. Monk Daming frowned and could not help but ask, You're leaving just like that? Didn't you want to kill me earlier on? That was just a casual statement. I merely wanted to bash you up. The voice of the martial Tao prime body sounded and his figure vanished completely by the time he said the final word. Monk Daming had a lost expression. Who was that purple-robed mysterious man? In fact, he could not even identify the background of that mysterious person's cultivation techniques despite the massive battle. That was way too strange. Why would that purple-robed mysterious man want to bash him up as well? Although Monk Daming's intelligence was terrifying, no matter how he racked his brains, he could not guess that the mysterious person was Su Zimo's third true body, Desolate Marshal's prime body. Monk Daming pondered for a moment and extended his palm. A fog appeared in his eyes as he divined with his fingers. Over the years, he had long memorized the contents of the Mystic Firmament record and had cultivated the divination secret skills involved to an extremely deep level. After a moment, he shuddered and the fog in his eyes dispersed. In fact, there were even streams of blood that appeared. He could not divine it at all. Not only that, he even suffered quite a backlash. It was lucky that he interrupted the divination in time. Otherwise, his eyes might have gone blind. Even the storyteller could not divine the origin and fate of the martial Tao prime bodies. Monk Daming's skills were even lesser. Monk Daming took a deep breath and composed himself, murmuring, "Once I advance to the Mahayana realm, I'll naturally fight you again if I have the chance." Enigma Palace. Su Zimo retracted his mind and no longer paid attention to the martial Tao prime body. Indeed, Monk Daming had many trump cards and was scarier than he had imagined. However, he was suppressed mercilessly when he encountered the martial Tao prime body. All his schemes and ploys could not withstand a single blow against absolute strength. The 10,000 race meet of Enigma Palace was still ongoing. Time slowly passed. The event lasted for an entire 7 days before coming to an end. The outcome of the 10,000 race meet was decided as well. The territory of the primordial 8 races could expand by a multiplier of 10. However, they could not kill all humans and living beings in this expanded territory that was 10 times larger at will. The primordial 8 races had to give the living beings a chance to stay far away or to relocate. Experts of the primordial races could leave their forbidden grounds and no longer have to live ignobly. However, they could not injure anyone casually upon entering the territory of another race. From now on, the 10,000 races will coexist in Tianhuang Mainland. Over the past few days, some news spread to Enigma Palace as well. The 3 super sects of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Penglai Island were infiltrated by a mysterious person who wiped away all the cultivation techniques and secret skills in their libraries. It was said that the disciples of the super sects who fought against that mysterious person were all defeated. Among them, there were even patriarchs who died. Nobody could make out the appearance of the mysterious person. Nobody could reveal the background of that mysterious person's cultivation techniques. Everything was a mystery. The patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Penglai Island naturally had ugly expressions. All the cultivators knew that this was definitely not a coincidence. At the start of the 10,000 race meet, the first ones to submit to the primordial races were those 3 super sects. It was clear that the mysterious person did it intentionally. Some of the cultivation techniques and secret skills in the libraries had been passed down through the ages. All 3 super sects suffered an immense loss this time round. Even if there were some cultivation techniques and secret skills that were cultivated by experts of the sect, it was extremely difficult for them to be rewritten perfectly. Although the foundation of the 3 super sects was still present, the loss of their cultivation techniques in their libraries meant that their foundations were now shaken. "Don't let me know who you are," the Malevolent Earth Sect Patriarch said hatefully, "otherwise, I'll definitely tear you to pieces." "Foo-foo." Su Zimo sneered coldly and mocked, "You're fiendish to human cultivators but submissive to the primordial races. How capable." The Malevolent Earth Sect Patriarch narrowed his eyes and looked at Su Zimo with an unfriendly expression. Why? You want to attack? Su Zimo swept his gaze with a murderous intent. The malevolent Earth Sect Patriarch turned his head slightly and avoided Su Zimo's sharp gaze without saying anything. Right now, Desolate Marshal was no longer the half-martial ancestor whom they could suppress at will before the start of the 10,000 race meet. Now that he had entered the Mahayana realm, Desolate Marshal was already a Patriarch expert. More importantly, everyone knew that the Human Emperor had written a Dharmic edict personally to impart the title of the Human Emperor as well as the Human Emperor's seal to Su Zimo. It could be said that the current Desolate Marshal was the new Human Emperor in the hearts of all living beings. Furthermore, this was Enigma Palace. The dragon race was present, the Palace Guardian was present, and the Mystic Emperor of Enigma Palace was present. Even if he had 100 guts, he would not dare to attack Desolate Marshal here. Some Mahayana Patriarchs exchanged glances without saying anything and had a tacit understanding. Once Desolate Marshal entered the Mahayana realm, he would definitely head to the ancient battlefield. There would be many experts interested in Desolate Marshal in the ancient battlefield. At that moment, Su Zimo looked at the crack in the firmaments with a worried expression. The crack was left behind by the Human Emperor's descent into Tianhuang Mainland. Although the Human Emperor had left, cracks had already appeared on Tianhuang Mainland. There were imperfections in heaven and earth and the laws were in chaos. Nobody knew what impact that would have. The danger of the primordial races was temporarily relieved. However, Tianhuang Mainland was still in turmoil and had some latent dangers. Once those latent dangers were released, they might be even more terrifying than the primordial 6 races. Chapter 1660, Get Lost. Chapter 1660 Get Lost. Brother Su, what are you worried about? Lin Xuanji asked. Now that the storyteller was fine, Lin Xuanji was in a great mood and relaxed completely. Nothing much. Su Zimo replied casually. Lin Xuanji smiled. Don't worry, after today, Tianhuang Mainland will welcome a long period of peace where the 10,000 races coexist without interfering with one another. The 2 emperors, the Hell Witch and Golden Crow, were severely injured by Senior Human Emperor. It'll probably take them at least 1,000 years to recover. Even if the 2 emperors recover 1,000 years later, there's still Senior Chen Dragon Emperor. Su Zimo nodded. The Chen Dragon Emperor had 10,000 years of lifespan remaining at least. In other words, in that 10,000 years, all the primordial races would be wary and would not dare to wage a war casually. However, Su Zimo was worried about something else. Now that I think about it, it's been 10,000 years since the catastrophe. He murmured softly. There were still some powerful existences in Tianhuang Mainland that he did not dare to make contact with. Furthermore, none of those experts appeared at the 10,000 race meet. The powerful existence that severely injured Long ran beneath the 1,000-year blood sea in Thousand Demon Valley. In fact, Long Ran was nearly killed before he could even see what was in the depths of the Blood Sea. There was someone else. It was the Saber Emperor, Hermit. Although Su Zimo was saved by Hermit, he still felt that there was something strange about the latter. What was even stranger was that the powerful existence in the 1,000-year Blood Sea back in Thousand Demon Valley had once saved him as well. Why? Apart from that latent danger, there was also the crack in the firmaments. That was something that the Human Emperor told Su Zimo in private. Su Zimo had no intention of revealing it to the masses. Imperfections within heaven and earth and the laws were in chaos, nobody knew what the impact of that would be. If he said it now, it would only bring about unnecessary fear. No matter what, he had to let the strength of the human race grow as soon as possible. At that thought, Su Zimo rose. He stood out before the major sects and factions who were about to leave now that the event had ended. Everyone, please hold on. Su Zimo declared. All the cultivators of the major sects and factions turned around and looked at Su Zimo. In Su Zimo's palm was a black and crystalline fruit that emitted a rich malevolent aura. Malevolent spirit fruit. Many experts exclaimed and recognized the fruit right away. Earlier on, when Su Zimo was attempting to break through to the Mahayana realm and undergo the divine power tribulation, he consumed a malevolent spirit fruit. The gazes of the half-martial ancestor experts of the major sects and factions turned fervent when they saw the fruit. Senior Desolate Marshal, are you auctioning this malevolent spirit fruit? The Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley asked respectfully, if it's an auction, I'm willing to offer treasures, cultivation techniques or secret skills in exchange for it, Senior Desolate Marshal. Although Su Zimo was young, he was already a senior to half-martial ancestor experts. I'll use a dermic treasure to exchange for it. A half-martial ancestor of Heavenly Dipper sect hurriedly said, I once obtained a dermic treasure in an ancient ruin and was prepared to use it for myself. However, I can bear the loss today and use that dermic treasure in exchange for this malevolent spirit fruit. At the half-martial ancestor or patriarch level, any item taken out was a priceless treasure. Most of them could only be exchanged with other items. As he said that, the half-martial ancestor of Heavenly Dipper sect took out a jade-green sword from his storage bag. Although the sword looked extremely ancient, the moment it was taken out, a cold glint shone from its body like a water ripple. It was extremely sharp. It was indeed an extraordinary dermic treasure. I can use a lesser divine power in exchange for the malevolent spirit fruit. A half-martial ancestor of Malevolent Earth sect could not help but stand out as well. I once obtained a page of beast hide. On it, there's a remnant divine power that is firmly condensed. If you get the beast hide, you'll definitely be able to comprehend the lesser divine power on it. The crowd stirred. Half-martial ancestors stood out one after another and took out many treasures, wanting to exchange for Desolate Marshal's malevolent spirit fruit. The allure of the malevolent spirit fruit was way too great for half-martial ancestors. These dermic treasures and divine powers could only be comprehended and used after entering the Mahayana realm. Everything would be over if they failed the tribulation transcendence. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent as he pushed his palm down. The voices of the crowd gradually quietened down. Su Zimo looked at the Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley and smiled gently, tossing over the malevolent spirit fruit in his hand. Turning into a streak of light, the malevolent spirit fruit arrived before the Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley. Senior. The Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley received the malevolent spirit fruit. She could not understand what was going on and said incoherently, I. You didn't tell me what treasures you want in return, Senior. What if I didn't? There's no need. Su Zimo waved his hand and pointed to the injuries on the Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley that had yet to heal. The injuries on your body are worth this malevolent spirit fruit. Ah. As the Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley, she felt a sense of warmth in her heart and her eyes reddened. During the battle with the primordial races earlier on, the Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley led her disciples and fought against them. They fought with their lives on the line for the dignity of the human race. Even after a few days, the injuries on the Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley had not healed completely. If not for that malevolent spirit fruit, the chances of her surviving the divine power tribulation would be extremely slim. This malevolent spirit fruit had reignited her hope. The situation that the human race faced a few days ago was extremely treacherous. Most of the sects such as Sword Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Chaos Essence Sect and the others stood by idly and did not dare to fight the primordial races head-on. As for Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Penglai Island, they had already submitted to the primordial 6 races. Only Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace and a few other sects stood out and joined forces with Monkey, Night Spirit and the others to fight the primordial 6 races. These sects suffered immense losses. In fact, the Palace Lord of Overlord Palace was already dead. Although Su Zimo said nothing, he paid attention to everything. Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and took out dozens of malevolent spirit fruits. Pust! The cultivators gasped. So many! Instantly, countless scorching gazes were drawn to Su Zimo. Many cultivators gulped. Su Zimo looked at everyone from Overlord Palace and said in a deep voice, "Any half-martial ancestor that fought against the primordial 6 races earlier on, as long as you're alive, you can come and claim a malevolent spirit fruit from me. I don't need any treasures." The moment he said that, the crowd went wild. Human Emperor! Human Emperor! Many cultivators and half-martial ancestors from Snowdrift Valley and Overlord Palace shouted the name of the Human Emperor. "Senior Desolate Marshal, what about us?" The Patriarch of Heavenly Dipper sect asked embarrassedly. "We're willing to exchange dermic treasures and divine powers for it. Senior, please give us some malevolent spirit fruit. You guys." Su Zimo looked at the many half-martial ancestors of Heavenly Dipper sect and Malevolent Earth sect with a cold gaze and said slowly, "Get lost." Chapter 1661, Human Tao Greater Divine Power. Chapter 1661 Human Tao Greater Divine Power. The half-martial ancestors of Heavenly Dipper sect and Malevolent Earth sect had ugly expressions. None of them could take it lying down after being scolded by Su Zimo in front of everyone. However, no one dared to refute. Su Zimo's unconditional distribution of the malevolent spirit fruit to the Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley and the others caused the cultivators of those sects to feel reverence for Su Zimo. The same way the cultivators shouted, in their hearts, Su Zimo was the new human emperor. Patriarch Desolate Marshal, Sword Sect has never submitted to the primordial 6 races. I wish to use a treasure in exchange for a malevolent spirit fruit, the sect master of Sword Sect could not help but say. Patriarch Desolate Marshal, the feud between you and Zephyr Thunder Palace is actually just a feud of the younger generation. It's nothing much. The Palace Lord of Zephyr Thunder Palace smiled as well. I wonder if our half-martial ancestors will have a chance of obtaining the malevolent spirit fruits. Of course there's a chance. Su Zimo nodded. The sect master of Sword Sect, the Palace Lord of Zephyr Thunder Palace and many other experts were delighted and said hurriedly, "Patriarch Desolate Marshal, thank you for your magnanimity." Su Zimo replied indifferently, "I can give you the malevolent spirit fruits, but you will have to abide by my orders from now on. If you disobey, you shall die on the spot." You. The smiles on the faces of the sect master of Sword Sect and the others froze. In the battle earlier on, none of the super sects such as Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace stood out. If those people were given the malevolent spirit fruits, it would be equivalent to feeding them to dogs. The sect master of Sword Sect and the others had dark expressions. In the end, they did not make up their minds and remained silent. The storyteller watched at the side and nodded to himself. By passing down the malevolent spirit fruits, the chances of half-martial ancestors of Snowdrift Valley and the other sects and factions entering the Mahayana realm would increase greatly. With that, the number of human patriarchs would increase significantly in a short period of time. The overall strength of the human race would also increase tremendously. These half-martial ancestors of the human race who obtained the malevolent spirit fruits were those who fought against the primordial races and survived. After this baptism, if these half-martial ancestors were able to advance to the Mahayana realm, they would have a bright future ahead as well. More importantly, it was the valiance of these half-martial ancestors. If the human race were to encounter any danger again, these half-martial ancestors would definitely stand out without hesitation. As well. To think that the 3 super sects, Heavenly Dipper sect and Penglai Island, would be the first to submit to the primordial 6 races. In the end, their outcome was the most tragic. That's right. Notwithstanding the fact that their sects were invaded, their losses at the 10,000 race meet were immense and many experts died as well. The era that belongs to Desolate Marshal is about to arrive. Yes, Desolate Marshal has advanced to the Mahayana realm. Now that the human emperor passed down his title and gathered the fortune of the world, the situation is set in stone. It'll probably be difficult to stop his rise. Although the living beings of the 10,000 races retreated after the conclusion of the meet, they were still discussing it. In fact, for a long time to come, the 10,000 race meet would become the focus of discussions for the living beings of Tianhuang Mainland. Of the primordial 9 races, the territory of the god race did not expand either. Furthermore, no one from the god race was allowed to leave their habitat. If any of them were to step foot onto Tianhuang Mainland, all living beings of the 10,000 races could slaughter them at will. Although the heavenly god emperor was dead, the deep foundation of the god race over the years was still nothing to be scoffed at. Naturally, humans could not take them head-on. The primordial races were worried that the god race might get desperate if they were pushed to their limits, so they did not try to annihilate the god race entirely. The crowd of the 10,000 races gradually dissipated. The primordial races bid farewell as well. The Dragon Phoenix true body would follow the Qin Dragon Emperor and return to Dragon Bone Valley to cultivate in seclusion. After he witnessed many top emperors in the battle, the Dragon Phoenix true body had an immense comprehension. There was blood and corpses everywhere in Enigma Palace. The ruins left behind by the Battle of the Emperors were devastating as many cultivators of Enigma Palace cleaned up. Although the storage bags of those experts could not make up for the loss of Enigma Palace, they had quite a bit of gains as well. Master, think of a way to save senior sister. Carefree carried a white cat and ran out. It was only then that Su Zimo was reminded of Baiming Shui and received the white cat from Carefree hurriedly. He came before the storyteller and said, "Senior, this white cat is my personal disciple. She was affected by the divine power of the beast Tao and was reduced to a white cat. I wonder if you can change her back, senior." The storyteller shook his head gently. The beast Tao is only a lesser divine power. Naturally, I can purge the beast Tao from the white cat's body. However, she has been affected by the divine power of the beast Tao for so long and has been greatly impacted. I can't guarantee that there won't be any problems if I forcefully purge the divine power from her body. Su Zimo looked worried. The storyteller changed the topic. You don't have to worry. As long as you release the human Tao greater divine power, you'll be able to neutralize the beast Tao perfectly and restore your disciple to her original state. Kong Yun will have to depend on you for that. The storyteller looked at the Emperor of Diamond Monastery at the side and said with a smile. The Emperor named Kong Yun clasped his palms together and chanted a Buddhist proclamation softly, "Patron Desolate Marshal, don't worry. Watch me transform this patron back." As he said that, Kong Yun channeled his essence spirit and extended his finger. A powerful divine power gathered on his fingertip and landed on the white cat in Su Zimo's embrace. Whoosh! A mysterious glow emanated from the white cat, as though it was shimmering. Right in front of everyone, the white cat gradually disappeared in the light and in its place was a charming and flawless woman. She laid in Su Zimo's embrace with an elegant beauty. It was Baiming Shui. Su Zimo sized up Baiming Shui and heaved a sigh of relief after sensing the condition of her body. Her body was fine. The beast Tao was perfectly resolved. Master. Baiming Shui blushed and called out softly. Su Zimo finally snapped out of his stupor and burst into laughter. He put Baiming Shui down hurriedly and turned to bow deeply to Monk Kong Yun. Thank you, senior. Baiming Shui bowed to Monk Kong Yun as well and expressed her gratitude sincerely. Senior sister, do you still recognize me? Carefree closed in with a grin. When I saw you, you were still an egg. How could I recognize someone who has changed so much? Baiming Shui smiled and shook her head gently. Su Zimo smiled. You guys can head down. Go somewhere else to talk. Yes. Baiming Shui and Carefree bowed and retreated. Along the way, Carefree chattered non-stop around Baiming Shui. Zimo, I'm going to enter the human emperor's palace and leave temporarily. The storyteller said, what are your plans after this? Take a rest and prepare to enter the ancient battlefield. Su Zimo said in a deep voice. The ancient was a remnant dimension left behind by the ancient war where many emperors fought. It contained many divine powers. They could be in ruins, corpses, mountains, rivers, or even flowers and trees. Nobody could guarantee the sort of opportunities and encounters one would come across within. Since you want to enter the ancient battlefield, let me remind you of a few things. The storyteller said, there's a seal left behind by the human emperor in the ancient battlefield and emperors of the primordial races can't enter. You don't have to worry about that. However, that does not mean that there are no dangers in the ancient battlefield. Monk Kong Yun at the side nodded as well. The 10,000 race meet has ended and the crisis of the primordial races has been resolved. However, you've severed your ties with super sects such as Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Penglai Island completely. There will definitely be patriarchs targeting you in the ancient battlefield. Chapter 1662, Position on the Divine Power Ranking. Chapter 1662 Position on the Divine Power Ranking. The storyteller nodded. That's right. The human emperor's seal is a massive weapon of Tianhuang Mainland. When it descends, it can suppress mountains and rivers for thousands of kilometers. Even the heavenly god emperor and the others are extremely wary of it. Since the human emperor's seal is in your hands, I'm guessing that someone will definitely fight for it. You have to be extremely careful. Su Zimo nodded. This, alongside the title of the human emperor and the human emperor's seal, were all a form of training left behind for him by the human emperor. If he wanted to grow further, he had to experience these things. If he followed the rules rigidly and comprehended divine powers one after another in the ancient battlefield, he might not even be able to become an emperor in 10,000 years, let alone 1,000. The storyteller thought for a moment and continued, there are 36 rankings on the divine power ranking and emperors are not among them. In other words, everyone on the divine power ranking are Mahayana patriarchs. If the divine power ranking is just for fame, it's fine even if I don't compete for it. Su Zimo was not bothered by such things. Of the 3 rankings of Enigma Palace, he merely fought for the phenomenon ranking. Ancestor Ling long established the divine power ranking in the ancient era and fame was secondary. The storyteller shook his head. Most importantly, there are 36 greater divine powers in the divine power ranking. The further one's name is ranked, the more the number of greater divine powers they inherit from the divine power ranking. The storyteller said, for example, if you're ranked 36 on the divine power ranking, you'll inherit a greater divine power from the divine power ranking. If you're ranked 35th, you'll inherit 2. If you're ranked 1st on the divine power ranking, you'll inherit a total of 36 greater divine powers. After a brief pause, the storyteller continued, not only that, the divine power ranking was refined personally by the human emperor and he even imbued 6 of his supreme divine powers. If you're ranked top 6 on the divine power ranking, you might have a chance of obtaining a supreme divine power of the human emperor's inheritance. Su Zimo nodded silently. From the looks of it, the competition for the rankings on the divine power ranking must be extremely intense. This was not a fight for fame, but immense benefits. The further one was ranked, the more greater divine powers they would inherit. The increase in combat strength after the comprehension of a single greater divine power was extremely obvious. Thereafter, one would have a chance to aim for a better position on the divine power ranking. This was a virtuous cycle. Furthermore, the top 6 of the divine power ranking would be able to obtain a supreme divine power of the human emperor. Of course, this inheritance could not let a Mahayana patriarch comprehend a supreme divine power instantly. It still required a Mahayana patriarch to cultivate, consolidate, accumulate and comprehend for a long time. However, supreme divine powers were way too precious and that opportunity was incredibly rare. Even in the ancient battlefield, the probability of locating a supreme divine power was extremely low. Furthermore, it was a supreme divine power cultivated by the human emperor. It was not hard to imagine that the fights between the top 6 of the divine power ranking would be even more intense. A cold glint flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he pondered. In that case, I've got to go fight for the divine power ranking. You definitely have to fight. The storyteller said, however, you have to know that anyone who can be on the divine power ranking, even if they're ranked 36 on the divine power ranking, will be at the perfected Mahayana realm. You must not underestimate them. One could only advance to the perfected Mahayana realm after comprehending at least 10 greater divine powers. It was clear how fierce the competition of the divine power ranking was. The 34, 27 and 21 on the divine power ranking, Matriarch Yu Luo, Patriarch Fei Duan and Patriarch Su Jing, appeared at the 10,000 race meet and 2 of them were killed by the Dragon Phoenix True Body, leaving only Patriarch Su Jing alive. All 3 of them were at the perfected Mahayana realm. However, the Green Lotus True Body was not the taboo Dragon Phoenix after all. He had not grown to his peak and was only at grade 8 while he was only at the early stage Mahayana realm. If he was up against a perfected Mahayana, he definitely had no chance of winning. However, the Green Lotus True Body had immense potential. If he were to continue growing and even get to temper supreme divine powers, he might be able to fight against Emperor weapons at the peak of grade 8. If he could grow to grade 9. The storyteller said, when I enter the human emperor's palace this time round and receive its inheritance, the palace guardian will have to undergo his tribulation transcendence as well. I might not be able to help you for the time being. As for these 5 fellow Taoists. The storyteller looked at the 5 emperors beside him. They joined forces with me and forcefully brought out the divine power ranking to suppress the primordial races. However, they suffered a backlash as well. It'll probably take them at least 1,000 years to recuperate. You can only depend on yourself in the ancient battlefield. You must be careful. Su Zimo nodded. The storyteller left a few more reminders before turning to head into the human emperor's palace with the palace guardian. Boom! 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 The human emperor's palace tore through the air and disappeared from everyone's line of sight. Thereafter, Monk Kong Yun and the other emperors left one after another as well. The clamor of Enigma Palace gradually dispersed and peace returned. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he thought of someone. He looked around but could not find any trace of that person. Consort Yu. At the 10,000 race meet, he had not expected Consort Yu to stand out when his life was on the line. But now, Consort Yu had already left and her whereabouts were unknown. Su Zimo sighed gently. Before he could thank her, she had already left in silence. Little Fox walked over and blinked her eyes. There was a hint of reluctance in her eyes as she whispered, "Young master, are you leaving again?" Monkey and the others looked at Su Zimo with anticipation as well. Although they were reluctant, they did not say anything. Over the years, the 7 of them siblings rarely spent time together. That 100 years in Thousand Demon Valley was a rare gathering time that was undisturbed by anybody. There's no rush. Su Zimo smiled gently. I can rest for a period of time now that the matter of the primordial races has been settled. We can call Night Spirit and have a good gathering when the time comes. Great. Little Fox could not help but clap her hands and cheer. Ow! Ow! Monkey thumped his chest excitedly. The spirit tiger grinned as well. A warm feeling surged through Su Zimo's heart when he saw that. While the danger of the human race might not be over yet, there should be a relatively peaceful period of time in Tianhuang mainland no matter what now that the 10,000 race meet was over. Su Zimo believed that with his siblings by his side, they would be able to endure everything no matter what would happen in Tianhuang mainland in the future. For the next period of time, the dragon phoenix true body returned to the ancestral dragon ground to cultivate. The martial Tao prime body refined and absorbed many cultivation techniques and secret skills in Pingyang town and fused them into the martial Tao furnace, prepared to break through to the Mahayana realm. In the next few years, Su Zimo returned to 100 Refinement sect and tried to break through to the Mahayana realm with extreme fire. He had once brought Xiaoning back to Ethereal Peak with Ji Qingtian, Leng Ro, Little Fatty, and the others to reunite with the old Immortal Crane and the others. He had even been to the capital of Great Zhou and chatted with Yaoxue while reminiscing about the past. All these years, as the Empress of Great Zhou, Yaoxue spent most of her efforts on how to manage the Great Zhou Empire. Naturally, her cultivation speed slowed down. Right now, she had only just entered the Void Reversion realm. The distance between the two of them was actually getting wider. However, after what the two of them experienced back then, Su Zimo felt that Yaoxue would always be a special and irreplaceable person. Later on, Su Zimo, Night Spirit, Monkey and the others dominated the 8 demon regions. In order to find out the reason for Qing Qing's father's death, they went to the Thousand Spider Sand Dune and caused a huge ruckus. Even the demon patriarchs of the Thousand Spider Sand Dune did not dare to step in. The 7 siblings even roamed the 3 oceans and snatched countless mystical treasures before returning to Tianhuang mainland. 10 years later. After bidding farewell to Night Spirit and the others, Su Zimo headed to the ancient battlefield. Chapter 1663, Hell Dao. Chapter 1663 Hell Dao. In the void of the ancient battlefield, a crack suddenly appeared and a green-robed cultivator darted in. He had refined features. It was none other than Patriarch Desolate Marshal, Su Zimo. The surroundings were barren, a desert without any signs of life. Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness and sensed carefully. Indeed, the ancient battlefield was different from Tianhuang mainland. The ancient battlefield was a world of its own and there were many divine powers that lingered in it, lasting through the ages and possessing immense might. If conjoined body mighty figures were to enter, their bodies would not be able to withstand the pressure and be squeezed into a blood mist, dying on the spot. A gigantic golden scroll hovered in the firmaments of the ancient battlefield. It was the divine power ranking that had once descended upon Enigma Palace and suppressed the primordial races. Although the ancient battlefield was extremely vast, the divine power ranking in the firmaments could be seen with a single glance in every corner of the battlefield. It was also at the center of the entire ancient battlefield. Right now, Su Zimo was only at the early stage Mahayana realm and was in no hurry to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking. Sir. The immediate concern for him was to comprehend as many lesser divine powers as possible to temper his green lotus true body continuously. As long as he comprehended enough lesser divine powers, he could attempt to comprehend greater divine powers. The creation green lotus contained some divine powers to begin with. There were lesser and greater divine powers. In fact, there were even supreme divine powers that grew endlessly. Of course, the process was gradual. Even if Su Zimo was extremely talented, he could not comprehend a supreme divine power and become an emperor right away. Su Zimo intended to look around and see if he could find any lesser divine powers to comprehend and cultivate. He did not pick a direction and chose to advance in the desert. Every single sand and stone in the ancient battlefield could contain some sort of divine power. Su Zimo walked extremely slowly and his spirit consciousness searched the vicinity continuously. Before long, a steel appeared before him. Half of the steel was severed by some divine weapon and the cut was incomparably smooth. There were some words etched on the remaining half of the steel that were clearly filled with the power of divine powers. There was a lesser divine power imprinted on the steel. Su Zimo looked at the steel from afar with a calm expression. Suddenly, a mocking look flashed through the depths of his eyes as he walked towards the steel. Arriving before the steel, Su Zimo focused his gaze. The runes on the steel were curved and every single crack exuded an extremely ferocious aura, as though malevolent ghosts and fiends were baring their fangs and claws as they charged out of the steel. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt that the surrounding desert had already vanished and he felt as though he had fallen into hell. His surroundings were dark with a chilling blood qi and countless fiends surrounded him. He had a lost expression, as though he was stuck in hell and could not extricate himself. Suddenly, a chilling killing intent burst forth from beneath Su Zimo. Humph! Su Zimo sneered and clarity returned to his eyes instantly. He condensed his spirit consciousness and the scene of hell around him vanished. He stomped down heavily. Boom! There was a loud bang. He stomped on the desert beneath him and created a gigantic pit. Sand and gravel flew everywhere as a figure wielding a long sword appeared. The blade of the sword struck Su Zimo's feet. A cruel look flashed through the figure's eyes. To him, his attack was enough to pierce Su Zimo's feet. Clang! Before he could finish his thought, he heard a crisp sound. Not only did his sword fail to pierce Su Zimo's feet, it even let out a metallic sound. His sword bent as though it had struck an iron wall. Its glow dimmed and it nearly snapped. Ah! The person's expression changed and he arrived on the other side of Su Zimo in a flash. Narrowing his gaze, he sized up Su Zimo in silence. Su Zimo's gaze shifted to that person. It was a skinny cultivator. He was less than 10 feet tall and looked like a midget. Early stage Mahayana. Even the weakest cultivators in the ancient battlefield were Mahayana patriarchs. There's no grudge between us. Why do you want to kill me? Su Zimo asked coldly. Ha! The skinny cultivator sneered, how are you still so naive even though you're at the Mahayana realm? Has there ever been any reason for all the fighting and killing in the cultivation world? Actually, there was indeed a lesser divine power on the damaged steel. As for that skinny cultivator, he did not leave after cultivating the lesser divine power. Instead, he camped by the damaged steel to wait for other patriarchs to arrive. If he did not feel confident, he would remain silent and not attack. If he encountered someone like Su Zimo who was at early stage Mahayana and did not seem like a threat, he would ambush and kill the latter. This skinny patriarch had tried this method a couple of times before. He even managed to obtain a few lesser divine powers from patriarchs who died. Unfortunately, the person he encountered today was Su Zimo. The moment Su Zimo saw the spirit perception, his powerful spirit perception sensed danger. Young man, hand over the dermic treasure on your feet. If you have any divine powers, hand them over as well and I can spare your life. The skinny patriarch said coldly. In his opinion, Su Zimo must have worn a boot-like dermic treasure on his feet. That was the reason why the latter's feet were invulnerable against weapons and could not be pierced by the sword. Su Zimo smiled and asked, "You don't recognize me? I don't care who you are." The skinny patriarch sneered, "I've killed more than 10 brats like you who have just entered the Mahayana realm. Is that so?" Su Zimo nodded and said indifferently, "Pay with your life today then." Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo's figure flashed and his blood qi surged, releasing rays of light. He reached out and grabbed the skinny patriarch's head. Pust! The skinny patriarch's expression changed. The power and aura released by Su Zimo's attack was way too strong. He actually felt a sense of danger and was alarmed. Swoosh! Without hesitation, the skinny patriarch channeled the sword in his hands and circulated his blood qi at the same time, piercing towards Su Zimo's palm. Clang! Another crisp sound rang when the sword struck Su Zimo's palm. Ordinary dermic treasures could not injure the grade 8 green lotus true body at all. Su Zimo's expression was cold and his gaze was indifferent. Exerting strength in his palm, he grabbed the sword and released a mighty jerk. Crack. 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 Cracks appeared on the sword. A tremendous power surged into the skinny Patriarch's body. The skinny Patriarch shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. His palm was torn and fresh blood dripped as he retreated continuously. Like a shadow, Su Zimo gave chase once more. Hell Dao. The skinny Patriarch hollered and released a lesser divine power. The Hell Dao was the lesser divine power on the steel. There were many lesser divine powers and the Hell Dao was one of the strongest among them. Su Zimo smiled gently and extended his palm slowly. In it was a green lotus that was filled with a resplendent glow. Chapter 1664, D-Clan. Chapter 1664 D-Clan. The moment the skinny Patriarch released his Hell Dao, the surroundings changed instantly. Countless ghosts appeared in a sinister and terrifying manner as blood chi spread with boundless darkness. The Hell Dao was the most ferocious divine power among the three evil Dao. The Beast Dao could turn humans into beasts. The Hungry Ghost Dao could throw living beings into the Hungry Ghost Dao and allow them to be devoured and tortured by countless hungry ghosts. However, once one fell into the Hell Dao, they would never see the light of day ever again. This was an endless abyss that no one could break free from. However, the moment the green lotus blossomed in Su Zimo's palm, everything in hell dissipated. The entire hell was riddled with holes by the glow released by the creation green lotus. The skinny Patriarch's expression changed starkly. It was only at this moment that he realized who he had encountered. Desolate Marshal. The skinny Patriarch exclaimed softly, "Your desolate Marshal." Although he was indifferent to everything on Tianhuang mainland, the commotion caused at the 10,000 race meet was way too great. Even the eternal human emperor descended personally. Furthermore, everyone knew that the human emperor had passed down a dermic edict personally to desolate Marshal. Even if he was cultivating in seclusion in the ancient battlefield all year round, he knew about this matter. The creation green lotus was an utmost treasure of the universe. That was one of Desolate Marshal's greatest characteristics. It was said that Desolate Marshal killed everyone in the 10,000 race meet and even some Mahayana patriarchs. This skinny Patriarch did not dare to fight and turned to flee. Swoosh! The skinny Patriarch's figure flashed and dermic powers surged from his feet. He was extremely fast and a series of illusions appeared as he sprinted into the distance. Heavenly feet. It was another lesser divine power. That was one of the 6 divine powers of the Buddhist monasteries. Furthermore, if this lesser divine power was cultivated to its peak, it could reach the level of a greater divine power. This was also one of the most famous escape techniques of the Buddhist monasteries. Wings appeared behind Su Zimo and streaks of lightning appeared on his body. At the same time, he released boundless golden light and his speed rose to its limits. Ethereal wings, zephyr thunder escape and boundless golden light burst forth at the same time. There was even an extremely powerful burst of divine power within the 3 escape techniques. After Su Zimo entered the Mahayana realm, boundless golden light had transformed completely and became a lesser divine power. A golden thunderbolt flashed and chased after the skinny Patriarch. The distance between the two of them decreased rapidly. The skinny Patriarch turned back and could not help but jump. Within a few dozens of breaths, Su Zimo had already closed in. Chi! Su Zimo flicked his finger gently and a white sword beam burst forth. It descended instantly and pierced the skinny Patriarch's body. The heaven-slaying sword Chi descended. Flashes of blood appeared. A murderous sword Chi burst forth from the skinny Patriarch's body and he turned into a blood mist instantly. The skinny Patriarch sensed that the situation was bad and his essence spirit had already escaped before the heaven-slaying sword Chi descended. Condense. His essence spirit tried to reconstruct his body using blood rebirth as he escaped. Mince him. Suddenly, Su Zimo's voice sounded with an unusual coldness. The heaven-slaying sword qi within the blood mist created by the skinny Patriarch's body released an endless sharpness that minced the life force in the bloody mist. The skinny Patriarch's body was minced to death by the heaven-slaying sword qi, leaving no trace of life. The prerequisite of blood rebirth was that one had to possess a drop of blood. But now, the skinny Patriarch was left with nothing but a flustered essence spirit. Snap! A thunderbolt descended vertically and struck the essence spirit of the skinny Patriarch. Although the skinny Patriarch was not killed directly, his essence spirit was severely injured. With that delay, Su Zimo's figure descended and extended his palm, capturing the skinny Patriarch's essence spirit. Without hesitation, he released the soul-searching art. A gigantic ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm. Black threads pierced the skinny Patriarch's essence spirit and absorbed his memories continuously. Su Zimo closed his eyes and searched the most useful part of the skinny Patriarch's memories. A moment later, the skinny Patriarch's essence spirit withered and dimmed. As for Su Zimo, he had gained quite a bit from the soul-searching art as well. The skinny Patriarch had indeed killed many people here with the help of the damaged steel earlier on and obtained 6 lesser divine powers because of that. He obtained heavenly feat by killing a monk of Hollow Monastery. Now, Su Zimo memorized all 6 lesser divine powers and was prepared to find a secluded place to comprehend them in seclusion. Upon entering the ancient battlefield, all the Mahayana Patriarchs spent most of their time comprehending divine powers. Su Zimo was no exception. Su Zimo returned to the damaged steel and memorized all the words on it in his mind. Gradually, he sank into the desert and disappeared, entering a long period of seclusion cultivation. Not long after Su Zimo disappeared, someone suddenly appeared in the void not far away. It was unknown when that person had arrived or how long he had been there. However, he managed to hide from Su Zimo's senses. It was a man in white robes. His long hair fluttered and covered most of his face, revealing a faint blood scar at his glabella. Monk Daming. Monk Daming had entered the ancient battlefield slightly earlier than Su Zimo. He looked in the direction where Su Zimo disappeared and was silent for a moment. His gaze landed on the damaged steel and he memorized the runes on it in his mind as well. Monk Daming knew that Su Zimo possessed an extremely sharp spirit perception that was unfathomable. As such, he did not dare to get too close. Far away, he looked at the steel and comprehended for a long time before heaving a sigh of relief. Desolate Marshal, you've finally caught up to me. I'll wait for you at the front. Monk Daming chanted internally and turned to leave. At the same time, in a relatively intact palace in the ancient battlefield, a middle-aged man sat in the middle. He was high and mighty. His eyes were closed and he exuded an emperor's dominance that looked down on all living beings. This was a true emperor. Right then, 4 Mahayana Patriarchs walked in. Their robes were similar and they were all from Chaos Essence sect. There were 2 mid-stage Mahayanas, 1 late-stage Mahayana and a perfected Mahayana. The perfected Mahayana was Di Yun, ranked 33 on the Divine Power ranking. Greetings, Di Emperor. When the 4 Chaos Essence sect Patriarchs entered the hall and saw the high and mighty middle-aged man, their eyes were filled with reverence as they knelt and greeted loudly. This was the Di clan, a major clan of the cultivation world. Although the strength of the Di clan could not compare to the 3 aristocratic families, they had patriarchs and emperors backing them. The Di clan was the oldest clan that originated from the ancient era. Legend has it that the ancestor of the Di clan was the first person to establish an empire in Tianhuang mainland. His descendants had incomparably noble bloodlines and were blessed by the heavens. The Di clan had a long history and almost every generation, a supreme monster incarnate would be born. In this generation, there was a monster incarnate like Di. Unfortunately, he was killed by Su Zimo and died prematurely. Chapter 1665, Mid-Stage Mahayana. Chapter 1665 Mid-Stage Mahayana. Du was the middle-aged man in the hall and was also the only emperor of the D clan in this generation. Although Du was also a Mahayana patriarch, he was only a junior in front of Du. There were way too many legends about Du in the D clan. Back then, Du was already the strongest paragon and overwhelmed everything. He reached the Golden Core realm at 16 years old, Nascent Soul realm at 20 years old, Void Reversion realm at 40 years old and Dharma Characteristic realm at 100 years old. This frightening cultivation speed was rare throughout history. In the records of the D clan, there were more than 10,000 battles involving Du. The most recent appearance by him was 10,000 years ago. Before Du was conferred the title of emperor, he descended upon the north region as a Mahayana realm cultivator and attacked domineeringly, suppressing an ancestral dragon. That battle created a massive crack in the north region. Later on, that crack would become known in the cultivation world as the Dragon Burial Valley. Although the three patriarchs beside Du were not from the D clan, they were also disciples of Chaos Essence sect. When they heard the summon of Emperor Du, they naturally did not dare to delay and rushed over right away. I heard that desolate marshal entered. Du said slowly with his eyes still closed. That seems to be the case judging from news from the sect. The patriarch with the Dao title of Leng Yen nodded slightly. However, the ancient battlefield is too huge. If Desolate Marshal were to look for a secluded place to cultivate in seclusion, it would be difficult to find him. Du nodded as well. There's no news of Desolate Marshal yet. Even if we have to dig 3 feet underground, we have to find Desolate Marshal. Du said coldly. The mid-stage Mahayana patriarch hesitated slightly and said in a deep voice, I heard that Desolate Marshal has the Human Emperor's Dermic Edict and the Human Emperor's seal in his hands. That's equivalent to the personal arrival of the Human Emperor. It's probably not easy to deal with him. What are you afraid of? Du sneered, Desolate Marshal has just entered the Mahayana realm and isn't a taboo dragon phoenix. With me around, there's no way he won't be suppressed. Don't worry. Du said slowly, as long as you guys can find Desolate Marshal, I'll personally kill him in the ancient battlefield at that time. The 4 patriarchs below were shocked. If an emperor were to attack personally to deal with an early-stage Mahayana patriarch, Desolate Marshal would definitely die. Of course, even if he could kill Desolate Marshal this time round, Du's reputation would definitely plummet. After all, such an attack was way too dishonorable. Furthermore, Desolate Marshal had an extremely high reputation after inheriting the title of the Human Emperor. Anyone who went against Desolate Marshal would be going against the eternal Human Emperor and the entire human race. Du continued, make good use of the time and try your best to join forces with the patriarchs of other sects and factions. We're definitely not the only ones who want Desolate Marshal's life. Du said in a deep voice, I understand. Patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper sect, Malevolent Earth sect and Penglai Island definitely hate Desolate Marshal to the core. Matriarch Yu Luo and Patriarch Fei Duan died in the hands of Desolate Marshal's taboo clone. Du nodded slightly. It's not just the 3 major sections. There's also Sword sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Hidden Death sect, Poison sect and Corpse Refinement cult. You guys have to join forces with them as well. I heard that Desolate Marshal did not give malevolent spirit fruits to those sections. Their patriarchs must definitely have a grudge against him too. If we use half of the Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield, I don't believe we can't find Desolate Marshal. After a brief pause, Du continued, we have to find him as soon as possible. Once Monk Kong Yun and the others are healed, it'll be much more difficult to kill him then. Understood. Du nodded. You guys can leave. Du waved his hand. Du and the other 3 cupped their fists and retreated. The reason why Diyu wanted to kill Desolate Marshal was not merely because of a feud within the clan. At their cultivation realm, they wouldn't care about the death of a descendant that was countless generations away. What truly tempted them were many powerful treasures and supreme divine powers. The human emperor's seal was not only an emperor weapon refined personally by the human emperor. It was said that there was even a supreme divine power of the human emperor etched on the human emperor's seal, 3 heads 6 arms. If he could obtain the human emperor's seal, he would have a chance to cultivate 3 heads 6 arms and his combat strength would increase exponentially. That was one of the strongest supreme divine powers of the human emperor in the past. After spending 10 years in Tianhuang Mainland, Su Zimo dominated the 4 regions, 3 oceans and 1 continent and caused quite a stir. However, Diyu did not attack. It wasn't because he didn't want to, it was because he had reservations. Su Zimo was of no threat to begin with. However, he had a clone that was a taboo dragon phoenix. Behind the taboo dragon phoenix was a behemoth like the dragon race and a supreme expert like the Chen Dragon Emperor. Diyu was worried that if he tried to kill Su Zimo, he might fall into the latter's trap and encounter a terrifying existence like the Chen Dragon Emperor. That was the reason why he only dared to lay his hands on Su Zimo after the latter entered the ancient battlefield. Here, he could act without reservations. Cultivation was endless and time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed since Su Zimo entered the ancient battlefield. In the past 100 years, Tianhuang Mainland underwent tremendous changes. After the 10,000 race meet, the territories of the primordial 8 races expanded. Countless humans moved away from the territory of the primordial races. The human race and the primordial races restrained one another. Although there were occasional conflicts, there were no major battles. Because the human emperor passed down his title, Desolate Marshal was renowned throughout the world. The martial Dao flourished and more living beings began to cultivate it. Among them, some paragons were born. Under Night Spirit's lead, the half-martial ancestor experts of the Kunlun Ruins left the Kunlun Ruins through Fairy Ling Long's secret passage. They would never be able to advance to the Mahayana realm in the Kunlun Ruins. That was because once they entered the Mahayana realm, they would trigger a divine power storm and die on the spot. They could only break through to the Mahayana realm upon returning to Tianhuang Mainland. This was an extremely powerful force that could not be ignored. Although there were no patriarchs or emperors in the Kunlun race, there were many half-martial ancestor experts. If they returned to Tianhuang Mainland and broke through to the Mahayana realm with the help of the malevolent spirit fruits, that faction would definitely surpass any super sect. If the Kunlun race suddenly appeared on Tianhuang Mainland, they would be too striking. Under Night Spirit's lead, the Kunlun race settled down in Ethereal Peak for the time being. 100 years. Night Spirit had long entered the Mahayana realm. After the 10,000 race meet, Monkey, the Spirit Tiger and the others broke through one after another and became old demons that ruled over a region. However, nothing seemed to have changed in the ancient battlefield after 100 years. The cultivators here were all Mahayana patriarchs. Every patriarch had a lifespan of 100,000 years. 100 years was a fleeting duration for those patriarchs. This day. Suddenly, a violent fluctuation came from the middle of a desolate desert and countless gravel collapsed, forming a gigantic pit. A figure tore through the air and was filled with a domineering divine power. He released a resplendent glow that resembled a jade-green lotus that swayed in the desert. Every single sway caused the massive ancient battlefield to tremble. Su Zimo had broken out of seclusion. Mid-stage Mahayana. Chapter 1666, Slaying a Patriarch. Chapter 1666 Slaying a Patriarch. One could only advance to the mid-stage Mahayana realm after comprehending more than 10 lesser divine powers. The speed of comprehending 10 lesser divine powers within 100 years was already extremely shocking. On the one hand, it was because Su Zimo was equivalent to a humanoid creation Green Lotus that could steal the creation of heaven and earth. His speed of comprehension of divine powers far surpassed most cultivators. On the other hand, Su Zimo witnessed the earth-shaking battle between many emperors at the 10,000 race meet personally. A battle of that level was a rare and precious experience for him. Most importantly, the human emperor once used his Green Lotus true body to fight against the heavenly god emperor and the other emperors of the primordial races. At that time, in the eyes of many cultivators, it was as though only supreme divine powers had been released the entire time in that battle. However, Su Zimo's black-haired essence spirit could sense it clearly in his consciousness. In the battle, the eternal human emperor made use of many lesser and greater divine powers as well. The reason why Su Zimo broke through the seclusion this time round was because he had encountered a bottleneck. If he wanted to break through to the late-stage Mahayana realm, he had to comprehend a greater divine power. Su Zimo's Green Lotus true body condensed the Tao techniques of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects as well as cultivated 3 lesser divine powers. There were many greater divine powers of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects and he had a chance to comprehend them all. However, comprehending a greater divine power was way too difficult unless there were other extreme methods. Su Zimo looked at the divine power ranking hovering in the firmaments in deep thought. Up till now, he was not prepared to fight for the divine power ranking. Given his current combat strength, he could definitely fight for a position on the divine power ranking if he used all his trump cards. However, it was extremely difficult for him to get into the top 6 of the divine power ranking. Su Zimo intended to comprehend a greater divine power and advance to the late-stage Mahayana realm before fighting for the divine power ranking. Desolate Marshal, so you're here. Right then, a cold voice sounded not far away. In the void, a figure appeared slowly and sneered at Su Zimo. This patriarch's face was yellow and he was as skinny as a bamboo pole. His clothes were colorful and emitted a faint blood stench. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent. His advancement to the Mahayana realm had caused quite a stir and would naturally attract other cultivators. Although the Patriarch looked like a sickly child, his body was filled with poisonous beings. If one focused their attention, they would notice that the colorful clothes were moving slightly and were formed by various poisonous beings. A Mahayana Patriarch of Poison Sect. Su Zimo gave the person a casual glance and said indifferently, "You're an early-stage Mahayana. Do you have a death wish?" Although this Patriarch of Poison Sect lingered in the ancient battlefield for more than 10,000 years, he had only comprehended a few lesser divine powers and was only at the early-stage Mahayana realm. However, even mid-stage Mahayana Patriarchs were unwilling to fight him. In terms of strength, mid-stage Mahayana Patriarchs could naturally suppress this Patriarch of Poison Sect. However, the Patriarch of Poison Sect was covered in poisonous bugs. If anyone was bitten by accident, they would be half dead even if they did not die. Most Mahayana Patriarchs would choose to avoid Poison Sect Patriarchs unless an irreconcilable conflict broke out. Desolate Marshal, others might be afraid of you, but I'm not. The Patriarch of Poison Sect named Luo Yin said coldly, "Furthermore, I don't mind telling you that there are countless Mahayana Patriarchs in the ancient battlefield searching for you wildly. Once they find you, you'll definitely die. Is that so?" Suddenly, Desolate Marshal raised his leg and stomped on the ground. Poof! In the desert beneath his feet, a ball of blood suddenly burst forth with an incomparably nauseating stench. Before a poisonous bug could reveal itself, he stomped down and crushed it. Su Zimo swept his gaze across Patriarch Luo Yin and said coldly, "You must have a death wish for attacking me." Swoosh! In a flash, Su Zimo arrived before Patriarch Luo Yin in the blink of an eye. At an extremely fast speed, he extended his finger and stabbed towards the latter's glabella. Humph! Patriarch Luo Yin's eyes shone sinisterly and his body trembled. emitting a bedazzling light that shot towards Su Zimo. He had nurtured those poisonous bugs for tens of thousands of years. Even late-stage or perfected Mahayana patriarchs would have difficulty surviving after being bitten by so many poisonous bugs. However, Su Zimo's gaze was like lightning and he did not dodge or avoid. He ignored the incoming poisonous bugs and continued stabbing with his finger. At the last minute, he changed tactics and conjured a sword art with 2 closed fingers, releasing a heaven-slaying sword chi. The change was so fast that Patriarch Luo Yin could not react in time. Poof! The moment the heaven-slaying sword chi pierced Patriarch Luo Yin's glabella, the poisonous bugs landed on Su Zimo and gnawed wildly. Desolate Marshal, you're ruthless. Patriarch Luo Yin's eyes gradually dimmed. He had not expected that Su Zimo would not dodge his poisonous bugs at all and pierce his consciousness with a single finger. Even his essence spirit could not escape. "See, it's fine even if I die." Patriarch Luo Yin's final remnant consciousness said fiercely, "Before long, you'll die with me. I'll watch you die from the poison here." At that moment, Su Zimo's body was filled with dense poisonous bugs and there was almost no part of his body that was exposed. Anyone who saw that would feel their scalps tingle. Who could survive against so many poisonous bugs? Seems like you don't know what the creation green lotus is at all. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded. It was still calm and emotionless. "All of you, get lost." Suddenly, Su Zimo hollered and channeled his blood chi. Streaks of green light burst forth from his body and shone in all directions with an endless brilliance. Against the green light, the poisonous bugs creaked and fell off, struggling on the ground in extreme pain. The creation green lotus was an utmost treasure of the universe and was flawless and immune to poison. The green glow illuminated the skies and spilled onto the mountains and rivers. It was supreme and was the most effective against the filthy poisonous bugs. Even ordinary lotus flowers could be pure and untainted, let alone the creation green lotus. All the accomplished monks with the deepest cultivations of the Buddhist monasteries such as Bodhi and Buddha who had achieved the Tao sat on various lotus platforms. It was clear how mysterious the lotus flowers were. A single cognitive deviation caused Patriarch Luo Yin to die. Su Zimo was not willing to look through Patriarch Luo Yin's storage bag and released a ball of Tao fire, tossing it on the ladder. The moment the Tao fire descended, poisonous bugs flew out from Patriarch Luo Yin's body one after another. His body burned with flames as he struggled continuously. However, before long, they were burned to ashes mercilessly by the Tao fire. Roar! Right then, a ferocious roar sounded from afar, approaching Su Zimo rapidly as though a supreme fiend had appeared. On the other side, powerful auras burst forth and sped over. Su Zimo had already cultivated the heavenly eye, heavenly hearing and heavenly feet of the Buddhist monasteries. He could already sense those experts from afar. More and more patriarchs charged in his direction. At that moment, Su Zimo could rely on the 3 divine powers of the Buddhist monasteries to find a gap and escape. However, he smirked and did not leave. Instead, he stood on the spot motionlessly, waiting for the experts to arrive. Chapter 1667, Sword Chi Prison. Chapter 1667 Sword Chi Prison. From the west, a tall and burly figure leaped over. Every single jump could cross dozens of feet. Each time he landed, the ground would quake in resonance. In the blink of an eye, the tall figure had already closed in. The figure was covered in golden fur and emitted the stench of rotting corpses. His 10 fingernails were long and curved slightly, resembling 10 cold curved sabers. That was a battle corpse of Corpse Refinement cult. A patriarch of Corpse Refinement cult hid in the vicinity and did not appear. However, the battle corpse he was controlling in secret had arrived before Su Zimo. It was clear that this battle corpse was also a Mahayana patriarch when it was alive. Later on, it was refined with many secret skills of corpse refinement cult, allowing such a monster to be created. Roar! Naturally, the battle corpse was fearless against Su Zimo and let out a roar, causing a nauseating yellow gooey liquid to ooze from the corner of its mouth. On the other side, 2 Mahayana Patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper sect arrived. The person on the left had a black birthmark in the shape of a leaf on his face. His Dao title was Bayu and he was at the late-stage Mahayana realm. The one on the right had a long face and a cold gaze. His Dao title was Breaking Light and he was at the mid-stage Mahayana realm. These 2 patriarchs had once been to Enigma Palace together with Matriarch Yuluo and the others. From the west, 3 cultivators in black robes arrived together with a thick malevolent aura. They were patriarchs of Malevolent Earth sect. There was a mid-stage Mahayana and 2 late-stage Mahayanas. The sound of a tsunami could be heard from the east. Countless dermic powers gathered and a Mahayana patriarch surfed over on a wave. He wielded a silver 3-pronged halberd and his body was shrouded by steam with a torrential aura. Patriarch Fei Lang of Penglai Island, who was at the perfected Mahayana realm. South. 2 patriarchs of Chaos Essence sect were speeding over. One of them was Di Yun, a perfected Mahayana and 33 on the divine power ranking. The other was late-stage Mahayana Patriarch Leng Yen of Chaos Essence sect. The 2 of them arrived the moment they received the news, and there were other Chaos Essence sect patriarchs on their way still. Even more Mahayana patriarchs were rushing over. Su Zimo's ears twitched and he could hear the sound of clothes fluttering in all directions. Desolate Marshal's appearance had alarmed countless Mahayana patriarchs. The ones before him were only the patriarchs who were closest to the area. As time passed by, more Mahayana patriarchs would arrive. What are you guys doing with such a grand formation? Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings calmly and asked. Desolate Marshal. Patriarch Bayu said coldly, your death has arrived. A patriarch of Malevolent Earth sect said coldly, Desolate Marshal, you made a name for yourself in Enigma Palace and even killed Patriarch Fei Duan of our sect. I'll make you pay with your life today. Patriarch Fei Duan was killed by the Dragon Phoenix True Body. If they were up against the Dragon Phoenix True Body, these patriarchs would truly not dare to speak. However, the Green Lotus True Body before them was only at the mid-stage Mahayana realm and had only comprehended 10 lesser divine powers. Everyone did not have much to fear. Furthermore, they had the advantage in numbers. There were even experts of the divine power ranking like Di Yun among the Mahayana patriarchs. It was more than enough to suppress a mid-stage Mahayana like Desolate Marshal. Di Yun glared at Su Zimo and said slowly, Desolate Marshal, it will be your greatest mistake to incur the wrath of my D clan. Everyone, kill Desolate Marshal right now. Di Yun waved his arm. Shoo. 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 Many Mahayana patriarchs attacked one after another and many dermic treasures transformed into divine lights that intertwined in midair, almost forming an impenetrable trap without any gaps. Many dermic treasures smashed toward Su Zimo. Good timing. Su Zimo burst into laughter and roared into the skies. Churning his blood chi, the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body as his aura rose rapidly. Swoosh. Su Zimo's figure seemed to have vanished and in his place was a creation green lotus that soared into the skies. It shone with a resplendent light that illuminated the world. Many dermic treasures were illuminated by the green light and could not smash down. All of them froze in midair and swayed slightly, as though they were enduring immense pressure. None of the dermic treasures landed on the creation green lotus. After a momentary stalemate, the dermic treasures shone brighter and brighter instead, trembling more intensely. Dissipate. Su Zimo's voice sounded and he hollered softly. The creation green lotus swayed gently and the entire void seemed to materialize, forming ripples that struck the many dermic treasures. Bang! 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 Some powerful dermic treasures were sent flying by the void ripples. Some dermic treasures of early-stage Mahayana patriarchs were even crushed into dust by the void ripples, dissipating into the wind. Massive cracks appeared on the dermic treasures of some mid-stage Mahayana patriarchs as well. They dimmed and fell from midair, turning into scrap metal. Only some dermic treasures of late-stage Mahayana patriarchs that had undergone the tempering of greater divine powers could remain intact against the impact of the creation green lotus. Poof! 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 Some Mahayana patriarchs shuddered and spat out blood. Many of those dermic treasures were the destiny dermic treasures of Mahayana patriarchs. With their destiny dermic treasures severely injured, the Mahayana patriarchs had their essence spirits implicated and were affected as well. Humph! Su Zimo's figure reappeared and vanished from the spot with a flash. Arriving before the three malevolent Earth sect patriarchs, he flipped his palm and smashed down. Poof! The dermic treasure of a malevolent Earth sect patriarch shattered and he spat out blood. Before he could react, Su Zimo slapped him to death. His essence spirit was already shattered by Su Zimo's power while it was within his consciousness. Sensing that the situation was bad, the other two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs turned and fled, wanting to distance themselves from Su Zimo. Trying to flee? Sneering coldly, Su Zimo closed two fingers and conjured a sword art, slashing gently in the direction of the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs. TSK. 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 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth from Su Zimo's sword finger and enveloped the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs instantly, forming a sword chi prison. Initially, the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs could still rely on the divine powers they cultivated to fight against the heaven-slaying sword chi. However, there were 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi that were extremely sharp and sliced the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs continuously. Within a few breaths, blood scars appeared on the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs. Another 3 breaths passed. The bodies of the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were sliced into pieces, turning into 2 blood mists. After a single breath, the 2 balls of blood mist were minced to death by the heaven-slaying sword chi, and the essence spirits of the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs died within. 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were ground to death by the 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi. You guys really think that you can kill me with your skills? Su Zimo looked down at everyone with a burning gaze. His body was shrouded by a green glow and his aura was torrential. He was like a god and no one dared to meet his gaze. Chapter 1668, Immense Life Force. Chapter 1668 Immense Life Force. Great Rain Summoning. Patriarch Fei Lang of Penglai Island waved his trident and pointed it at Su Zimo, releasing a greater divine power. Boom! 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 Thunder rumbled and in the blink of an eye, dark clouds filled the skies above Su Zimo. The next moment, a downpour showered down. This was no ordinary rainwater. Every single drop of rain was condensed from an extremely powerful divine power. Like needles and swords, they could penetrate a cultivator's body. Great Wind Summoning. Diyun of Chaos Essence Sect took out a horsetail whip from his storage bag and waved it toward Su Zimo, causing a wild wind to howl from the flat plains. This was the astral wind above the 9 heavens. It could pass through the 5 organs and even destroy a cultivator's essence spirit. Cultivators with lesser cultivation realms would be blown apart by the great wind summoning, leaving nothing but corpses. Roar! On the other side, the golden-haired battle corpse roared and charged toward Su Zimo with a menacing expression. The other Mahayana patriarchs attacked as well. Instantly, countless divine powers tore through the air with a massive might as sand and rocks flew. Su Zimo had a fearless expression as his blood chi surged with the sound of a tsunami. A green glow burst forth and blocked the incoming downpour. Beep! Beep! The rain fell continuously as though it was endless. Before long, it penetrated the green glow and landed on the green lotus true body. Patriarch Fei Lang's eyes lit up. Without the protection of the green glow, his greater divine power was enough to kill Su Zimo. Clang! 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 However, when the raindrops landed on the green lotus true body, not only did no blood appear, they shattered and the crisp sound of jade striking could be heard. Although the great wind summoning dispersed the green glow around Su Zimo, it could not injure the green lotus true body at all. Su Zimo's figure stood in the wild wind without budging at all. His eyes were frighteningly bright and he was filled with a chilling killing intent. What? Patriarch Fei Lang's eyes widened and his pupils constricted. His greater divine power could not injure Su Zimo's green lotus true body. Swoosh! With a flash of golden lightning, Su Zimo's figure vanished from the spot. The next moment, Su Zimo arrived before Patriarch Fei Lang. Patriarch Fei Lang reacted extremely quickly as well and conjured a gigantic wave beside him, protecting his body completely as he tried to distance himself. Kill! Su Zimo hollered and released a sound domain secret skill. Swoosh! The torrential wave dissipated instantly against the vibration of Su Zimo's sound domain secret skill. Patriarch Fei Lang's figure was completely revealed as well. His eyes were bloodshot and 2 streams of blood oozed from his ears. He was dealt a huge blow. Kill! Patriarch Fei Lang hollered as well and waved his silver trident with both hands, piercing toward Su Zimo. The gigantic halberd was filled with an extremely powerful divine power. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid. He reached out with his fair palm and grabbed the tip of the 3-pronged halberd. No matter how Patriarch Fei Lang channeled his blood qi and divine powers, the halberd did not budge in Su Zimo's palm. Die! Su Zimo hollered and gripped the tip of the halberd. He exerted strength and pushed forward viciously. The trident slid out of Patriarch Fei Lang's palm and its tail pierced his chest, causing blood to spew. The tremendous power ruptured Patriarch Fei Lang's chest. The difference in strength was too great. Su Zimo flicked his finger gently and a heaven-slaying sword qi burst forth, tearing through the air. Patriarch Fei Lang's essence spirit had just escaped and was killed before it could form a physical body. A perfected Mahayana Patriarch was killed by the Green Lotus true body on the spot. This scene shocked the Mahayana Patriarchs present. Although Patriarch Fei Lang was not an expert on the divine power ranking, he was also at the perfected Mahayana realm and had comprehended more than 10 greater divine powers. However, he could not defend against Su Zimo's attacks. With the slight delay Su Zimo spent to kill Patriarch Fei Lang, many lesser and greater divine powers smashed down. The Green Lotus true body had nowhere to run. Bang! 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 Against so many divine powers, Su Zimo's Green Lotus true body could not stand in midair and was drowned instantly, smashing heavily onto the ground. Sand and gravel flew everywhere as a human-shaped pit was formed on the ground. Is he dead? Desolate Marshal shouldn't have died yet. I didn't see his essence spirit escape. It's fine. Even if he's not dead, Desolate Marshal will definitely be severely injured. That's right. If we can't kill Desolate Marshal with this wave of attacks, we'll just release another wave of attacks. If 2 won't do, we'll use 10. Even if we have to drag things out, we can exhaust Desolate Marshal to death. Many Mahayana Patriarchs discussed as they closed into the pit. Fu. Right then, mocking laughter sounded from the pit. Su Zimo stood up slowly from the pit. Although his green robes were tattered and he was filled with injuries, his eyes were still frighteningly bright. You're still laughing? Patriarch Bayu of Heavenly Dipper sect grit his teeth. We'll make sure you can't even cry later. Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo shook his head gently and mocked, you guys are still too weak. Under the gazes of many Mahayana patriarchs, the wounds on Su Zimo healed at a visible speed. In the blink of an eye, those injuries healed. Su Zimo had already recovered to his original state. The expressions of many Mahayana patriarchs changed slightly. The bloodline of Mahayana patriarchs was extremely strong after experiencing the baptism of divine powers. However, injuries caused by dermic treasures would have divine powers lingering in the wounds. As such, it would take a long time to recover from those. Many patriarchs had never seen someone recover with the same speed as Su Zimo. Everyone, attack! Desolate Marshal must be stalling for time. Diyun reminded hurriedly and attacked right away, releasing another greater divine power. At the same time, he waved his horsetail whip and whipped Su Zimo. Bang! 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 Many Mahayana patriarchs reacted as well and channeled their essence spirits once more, releasing lesser and greater divine powers. Many divine powers blanketed the skies and could not be avoided. Once again, Su Zimo's figure was drowned by many divine powers. Many patriarchs could clearly see that the many divine powers had smashed onto Su Zimo, they even saw blood splatter. A moment later, the power of divine powers dissipated and the patriarchs focused their gazes. In the desert, Su Zimo crawled up slowly and shrugged his neck. His body was filled with wounds and there were at least 100 of them. However, the wounds were filled with green glows and healed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, the green lotus true body had returned to normal. Pust! The many Mahayana patriarchs gasped. His regeneration capabilities and immense life force had already surpassed their understanding. Chapter 1669, Attack of the Yu Emperor. Chapter 1669 Attack of the Yu Emperor. After the creation Green Lotus grew to grade 8, even many greater divine powers could not shake its foundation. Even if it was injured, the powerful life force in the creation Green Lotus would circulate on its own and its injuries would recover in the blink of an eye. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs were secretly alarmed. If this continued, they would be exhausted to death before anything happened to Su Zimo. Aren't you guys here to snatch the human emperor's seal? Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and said slowly, "Now, I'll let you guys have a taste of the might of the human emperor's seal." In Su Zimo's palm was a gigantic seal. It was pitch black and cold with defined edges, emanating an ancient and powerful might of the Emperor Dao. Boom! Su Zimo tossed his palm and the human emperor's seal descended from the skies, smashing towards Patriarch Bayu of Heavenly Dipper sect with a terrifying might. Patriarch Bayu's expression changed. The human emperor's seal was a massive weapon of Tianhuang mainland and even emperors of the primordial races would be smashed into a bloody mist against it. Although Su Zimo was at the mid-stage Mahayana realm and could not release the full might of the human emperor's seal, Patriarch Bayu did not dare to fight him head-on and turn to flee. However, while he was fast, the speed of the human emperor's seal's descent was even faster. Swoosh! A large shadow enveloped down. Before the human emperor's seal landed completely, the immense pressure had already descended and Patriarch Bayu's speed was greatly reduced as though he had fallen into a swamp. Patriarch Tyrant Yu's face was pale. Seeing that he could not escape from the range of the human emperor's seal, he did not have time to think and swung the saber in his hands, slashing down viciously at the human emperor's seal. Boom! Boom! The human emperor's seal descended and the ground shook. Patriarch Tyrant Yu was smashed into a meat sludge by the human emperor's seal and died. When Diyun saw that, his expression changed with a hint of fear. However, he was not afraid. That was because as long as time passed, the emperor of the D clan would arrive here. At that time, even if Su Zimo had the human emperor's seal, he would be suppressed mercilessly by the emperor. More and more Mahayana patriarchs gathered here. Among them were some Mahayana patriarchs of Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace and Dapamkara Monastery. Fellow Daoist Desolate Marshal, don't worry. I'll help you. A Patriarch of Overlord Palace carried a gigantic spear and walked towards Su Zimo. Count me in. A Patriarch of Snowdrift Valley stood out as well. After the 10,000 race meet, not all the super sects in Tianhuang Mainland were enemies with Su Zimo. For example, Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace and the 6 Buddhist monasteries had immense respect for Desolate Marshal. It was not only because the eternal human emperor passed down his title. More than that, Desolate Marshal stood out at the 10,000 race meet and led many humans to fight against the primordial races. It was also because Desolate Marshal had selflessly given them malevolent spirit fruits. In the hearts of many Mahayana patriarchs, Desolate Marshal was this generation's human emperor. Thank you for your kind intentions, fellow Taoists. There's no need for you guys to attack. Just stand by and watch. Suddenly, Su Zimo declared. The many Mahayana patriarchs of Overlord Palace, Snowdrift Valley and the other factions paused and hesitated, not understanding why Su Zimo did not let them interfere. Boom! Another loud bang sounded. Su Zimo had controlled the human emperor's seal to smash another Mahayana patriarch to death. Bang! 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 Diyun and the other Mahayana patriarchs attacked one after another and released another wave of attacks towards Su Zimo. However, they could not injure the foundation of the Green Lotus true body. On the contrary, under Su Zimo's control, the human emperor's seal barged through the crowd. If they were struck head-on by the human emperor's seal, they would turn into a blood mist. If their essence spirits were any slower in escaping, they would die on the spot. Even if they were only scratched by the human emperor's seal, their tendons and bones would definitely be snapped. Although Di Yun was an expert ranked 33 on the Divine Power ranking, he could not fight the human emperor's seal head-on and could only rely on the horsetail whip in his hands to try his best to neutralize the power of the human emperor's seal. Su Zimo carried the human emperor's seal and charged towards Di Yun in huge strides. Many Mahayana patriarchs were wary of the power of the human emperor's seal and avoided it, not daring to advance. The two of them were in a standoff in the chaotic battlefield. 33 on the Divine Power ranking? Su Zimo sneered, I'll remove you from the Divine Power ranking today. Mountain lift. Di Yun did not dare to be careless and channeled his essence spirit hurriedly, conjuring a greater divine power. Waving his horsetail whip, he moved a gigantic mountain from afar and charged towards Su Zimo. Shatter. Su Zimo raised the human emperor's seal and smashed it towards the mountain. Boom! Boom! Sand and gravel flew everywhere. Compared to the gigantic mountain, the human emperor's seal was incomparably tiny. However, it shattered the mountain peak into countless boulders that fell one after another. Su Zimo passed through the dust clouds of sand and gravel and charged towards Di Yun. Moon chase. Di Yun's expression changed slightly. Not wanting to fight Su Zimo head-on, he turned and fled at a frightening speed. Mountain lift and moon chase were two greater divine powers. The former focused on strength while the latter was a divine power of movement speed. Root. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and murmured. With each step Di Yun took, thick roots would grow from the void beneath his feet and coil around his ankle. Of course, this was only a lesser divine power and could not restrict Di Yun's figure. Di Yun channeled his blood chi and could regain his freedom with a slight struggle. However, those roots still had a huge impact on Di Yun. Under the constant disruption, Di Yun's speed gradually slowed down. As for Su Zimo, he closed in rapidly with his heavenly feet and said coldly with a murderous aura, I think the Di clan is tired of living in the ancient battlefield. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. As he said that, Su Zimo tossed the human emperor's seal in his hands and smashed it towards Di Yun. Great protection technique. Di-Yun roared and divine powers emanated from his body, forming an impenetrable barrier around him. Boom! The human emperor's seal smashed down. With a snap, the human emperor's seal shattered the great protection technique and the aftershock collided with Di-Yun, shattering his body into pieces. Di-Yun's essence spirit had escaped. Die! Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he closed two fingers and conjured a sword art, prepared to kill Di-Yun on the spot. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying might descended and the entire battlefield suddenly fell into silence. All the Mahayana patriarchs looked up with shocked expressions. The might of the Emperor Dao. An emperor had arrived personally. You Emperor, save me! Di-Yun exclaimed hurriedly when he sensed the aura. It was the Emperor of the Di clan, Di-Yu. Desolate Marshal, hand over your life. Suddenly, a gigantic palm descended from the void, covering the skies as it grabbed towards Su Zimo. An emperor had taken action personally to suppress a mid-stage Mahayana, there was no doubt about the outcome at all. The Patriarchs of Overlord Palace, Snowdrift Valley and the other sects suddenly thought of a possibility. Did Su Zimo stop them from interfering earlier on because he had predicted this? Chapter 1670, Annihilation and Rebirth. Chapter 1670, Annihilation and Rebirth. Su Zimo's expression was calm and he was not surprised at all. The storyteller had long reminded him that emperors would attack him in the ancient battlefield. At that moment, Di-Yun's essence spirit fled into the distance. If Su Zimo wanted to avoid the attack of the Emperor Yu, he would not be able to kill Di-Yun. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he ignored the gigantic palm that descended from the skies. Closing two fingers, he released dozens of heaven-slaying sword chi instantly and encircled Di-Yun's essence spirit. Desolate Marshal, you. Di-Yun's essence spirit's expression changed. Initially, he thought that he had already managed to escape. Di-Yun did not expect that Su Zimo would disregard his own life and the attack of an emperor just to kill him here. Under normal circumstances, a single heaven-slaying sword chi was enough to kill a patriarch's essence spirit. In order to kill him completely and prevent him from escaping, Su Zimo released dozens of heaven-slaying sword chi and sealed his escape path completely. TSK. 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 Countless sword chi weaved together to form an impenetrable sword net the size of a palm that enveloped Di-Yun's essence spirit. Desolate Marshal, you won't be able to survive either if you kill me. Di-Yun roared. The next moment, his essence spirit was minced by countless heaven-slaying sword chi on the spot and died. At the same time, the Emperor's palm descended and slapped Su Zimo's green lotus true body heavily. That was the power of an emperor. It was fused with the power of a supreme divine power. The difference between them was too great. Although the creation green lotus was strong, it merely underwent the baptism of lesser divine powers and was far from the peak of grade 8. The Yu Emperor slapped down and shattered the grade 8 creation green lotus almost instantly, causing it to explode on the spot with blood splattering everywhere. Many Mahayana patriarchs had conflicted expressions when they saw that. Some of them gloated, some of them stayed out of things while others revealed pity and sadness. Desolate Marshal was the successor chosen by the eternal human emperor after all. To think that he would be killed by an emperor just like that after just advancing to the mid-stage Mahayana realm. Suddenly, a streak of light flew out from the shattered blood mist of the green lotus true body and sped into the distance. Many cultivators watched with widened eyes. The streak of light was a scroll. Within the scroll was a storage bag, a pitch-black seal and an essence spirit. That scroll is the human emperor's Dharmic edict. Some Mahayana patriarchs who had been to the 10,000 race meet recognized the scroll right away and exclaimed, "Desolate Marshal isn't dead." Another person said in a deep voice, although his green lotus true body was destroyed, his essence spirit hid in the human emperor's dermic edict and escaped. Condense. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded from the human emperor's dermic edict. In the blink of an eye, the Green Lotus true body was formed. The life force of the creation Green Lotus is way too strong. It can be reborn with a drop of blood after being destroyed by the power of an emperor. I heard that before Desolate Martial entered the Mahayana realm, this Green Lotus true body could already use blood rebirth. Now that he's already at the mid-stage Mahayana realm, his regeneration capabilities are naturally even more terrifying. Su Zimo's body recovered to normal and his face was slightly pale. He sprinted into the distance as fast as lightning and wings flapped behind him, emitting electric arcs. At the same time, he released boundless golden light and heavenly feet and other lesser divine powers at an extremely fast speed. Many Mahayana patriarchs released their full strength hurriedly and followed, wanting to see the final outcome. Humph. The figure of the Emperor Yu appeared in the firmaments and exuded a tremendous might. With a cold expression, he said coldly, "You're trying to escape under my watch?" As an emperor, it was already embarrassing for him to not be able to kill Su Zimo with a single attack. It would be way too embarrassing if Desolate Martial were to escape. Bang! With a fling of his robes, a horsetail whip tore through the air and 3,000 silver threads whipped Su Zimo like 3,000 terrifying whips. The 3,000 silver threads seemed to cross the void. No matter how fast Su Zimo escaped, he could not escape from the whipping of the 3,000 silver threads. Poof! That horsetail whip was the Destiny Emperor weapon of the Emperor Yu. When such a powerful power whipped Su Zimo, the Green Lotus true body turned into a blood mist instantly and more than half of the life force in his body was minced by the 3,000 silver threads. Su Zimo did not use the human emperor's seal to defend. He knew very well that although the human emperor's seal could withstand the whipping of the emperor's horsetail whip, it could not withstand the power of an emperor and he would still be severely injured. Furthermore, if he summoned the human emperor's seal, it would fall right into the hands of the Yu emperor. The Emperor Yu would definitely snatch the human emperor's seal right away while he had no way of fighting for it. The Green Lotus true body was destroyed by the horsetail whip of the Emperor Yu and more than half of its life force was destroyed. However, a portion of his bloodline was wrapped within the human emperor's dermic edict by Su Zimo as he fled from the battlefield. Su Zimo's essence spirit, storage bag and the human emperor's seal were all hidden within the human emperor's dermic edict. Condense. Su Zimo called softly. In the blink of an eye, the Green Lotus true body was formed once more. The Yu emperor's expression darkened completely. Although he destroyed Desolate Martial's Green Lotus true body twice in succession, he could not kill Desolate Martial on the spot. That enraged him. Chaos Essence Grotto. He channeled his essence spirit and waved his hands. Suddenly, the void in front of Su Zimo collapsed and a gigantic, dark hole appeared, spinning continuously with a powerful suction force. Su Zimo's expression changed and he stopped in his tracks. However, the gigantic cave was filled with an extremely domineering divine power. Even if he wanted to stop, he could not control his body and was pulled towards the cave. That's the supreme divine power, Chaos Essence Grotto. I heard that once you fall into Chaos Essence Grotto, it's dark and you can't sense time and space. Even dermic treasures will be minced into dust and turned into nothingness, let alone cultivators. That's right. Once you fall into Chaos Essence Grotto, don't even think about coming out alive. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo was devoured by Chaos Essence Grotto. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs shook their heads gently. In their opinion, Desolate Martial was already a dead man. Su Zimo felt an extremely terrifying power tear, squeeze and distort his Green Lotus true body within Chaos Essence Grotto. He could not defend against that power at all. Poof! In the blink of an eye, the Green Lotus true body was minced by Chaos Essence Grotto. The human emperor's Dermic edict reappeared and protected Su Zimo's essence spirit and a portion of his bloodline hurriedly. If Su Zimo's essence spirit was the only thing that was protected and the bloodline of his Green Lotus true body was minced by the Chaos Essence Grotto, he wouldn't be able to use Blood Rebirth. Condense. Su Zimo channeled Blood Rebirth. The Green Lotus true body condensed once more. However, he could not break free from the shackles of Chaos Essence Grotto. The moment his Green Lotus true body was formed, it was minced by Chaos Essence Grotto and turned into a blood mist. The Green Lotus true body was destroyed once more. The human emperor's Dermic edict opened up to protect Su Zimo's essence spirit and bloodline. Fufu. When the Yu Emperor saw that, he sneered, "I'll destroy you every time you're reborn. Let's see how many more times your Green Lotus true body can be reborn." No matter how strong the life force of the Green Lotus true body was, there was a limit. The Green Lotus true body was destroyed continuously and his blood chi was severely drained. Continuous blood rebirth took a huge toll on Su Zimo's essence spirit. Each time he reconstructed his body, Su Zimo's face would turn paler. However, there was still no hint of panic on his face. Instead, he was extremely calm. As the Green Lotus true body was destroyed and reborn, Su Zimo's eyes shone with a bright glint, as though he was comprehending something. Chapter 1671, Late Stage Mahayana. Chapter 1671, Late Stage Mahayana. The creation Green Lotus stole the creation of heaven and earth and had many mysterious aspects to begin with. When the creation Green Lotus was at grade 7, in its complete form, it was merely a lotus platform. Even then, it could nourish Su Zimo's essence spirit and allow him to release many dermic arts continuously. At its peak, divine powers similar to blood rebirth could even be derived. Now that the creation Green Lotus was at grade 8, Su Zimo could already sense the obscurities within. The creation Green Lotus contained many greater divine powers to begin with and even supreme divine powers. Of course, Su Zimo was only at the mid-stage Mahayana realm right now. Even if he was the Green Lotus true body, it was unrealistic for him to comprehend supreme divine powers. However, in Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven, the Green Lotus true body was destroyed and reborn continuously due to the supreme divine power of the Yu Emperor. During this process, Su Zimo's comprehension of his greater divine power deepened. To a certain extent, he was a humanoid creation Green Lotus. It was the easiest for him to comprehend the divine powers produced by the creation Green Lotus. Even after 10 breaths, Desolate Marshal isn't dead? That can't be right. Even the number 1 of the divine power ranking wouldn't be able to withstand that supreme divine power and would have died a long time ago. Many Mahayana patriarchs caught up and discussed softly. "I don't believe you're not dead." The Yu Emperor channeled his essence spirit continuously and the world within Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven spun. A terrifying power tore through the Green Lotus true body and ground away every inch of flesh and life. Great healing technique. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded from Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. An extremely massive divine power spread from the spinning Grotto Heaven and endless life force surged out. The Green Lotus true body had already reached its limits after so many destruction. However, right then, Su Zimo comprehended a greater divine power of the creation Green Lotus and instantly, a tremendous life force burst forth. In the blink of an eye, the Green Lotus true body was formed once more. Su Zimo had experienced the baptism of a divine power storm in the Kunlun ruins. The divine power storm was a healing-type divine power storm. There were other greater divine powers within the creation Green Lotus. However, Su Zimo had the deepest comprehension towards healing divine powers and comprehended them first. The Yu Emperor frowned and his gaze froze. He could clearly sense that Desolate Marshal could not hold on for much longer in his Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. However, he had not expected Desolate Marshal to survive in the blink of an eye and comprehend a greater divine power. Furthermore, it was the great healing technique. The Green Lotus True Body was initially at the end of its road. However, after releasing the great healing technique, the Green Lotus True Body was filled with vitality and all its injuries were healed. The power of the greater divine power baptized the Green Lotus True Body and black-haired Essence Spirit continuously. The power of Su Zimo's body, bloodline and Essence Spirit rose rapidly. Under the stimulation of that tremendous life force, the creation Green Lotus grew rapidly as well. Each time it underwent a divine power baptism, the creation Green Lotus would grow slightly. The strength of the Green Lotus True Body was only revealed after the baptism of a greater divine power. Initially, the power of Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven could destroy the Green Lotus True Body instantly. But now, the Grade 8 Green Lotus True Body could defend against the power of Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. The Green Lotus True Body was covered in injuries and fresh blood flowed. Flesh was torn endlessly, revealing the jade green bones and organs within. However, the great healing technique also healed the injuries of the Green Lotus True Body wildly. Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven could no longer destroy the Green Lotus True Body completely. He had merely comprehended a single greater divine power right now. If he comprehended more greater divine powers and continued to cleanse his Green Lotus True Body, Su Zimo could not imagine how his body would grow as the creation Green Lotus grew. Su Zimo gripped the human Emperor's seal and smashed it towards the entrance of Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. Boom! Boom! No matter how strong Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven was, it could not crush the human Emperor's seal. The human Emperor's seal created a passage within Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. Su Zimo channeled his Essence Spirit and his figure flashed. He followed behind the human Emperor's seal and escaped from Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven rapidly. Ha ha ha! Although Su Zimo was covered in blood, he still reared his head in laughter. It's all thanks to you that I'm able to comprehend a greater divine power in such a short period of time and advance to the late-stage Mahayana realm. This Desolate Marshal has just entered the mid-stage Mahayana, but he already managed to comprehend a greater divine power so quickly? After all, it's the creation Green Lotus that stole the creation of heaven and earth. Coupled with the fact that the human emperor passed down his title and gathered the fortune of the world, it's only logical for his cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. He's actually making use of an emperor to break through. His boldness. Many Mahayana patriarchs had just arrived when they saw this. Su Zimo knew very well that even though he had comprehended the great healing technique, it was only a greater divine power. He was no match for an emperor who had comprehended supreme divine powers. He broke free from Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven and burst into laughter before turning to flee. The divine power of the great healing technique was still baptizing Su Zimo's body, bloodline and essence spirit continuously. This time round, after he condensed ethereal wings, channeled Zephyr Thunder escape and burst forth with boundless golden light as well as heavenly feet, his speed was even faster than before. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared before everyone. Many perfected Mahayana patriarchs present could not catch up to Su Zimo even with their full strength. Desolate Marshal has too many escape techniques. One of them should be the heavenly feet of the Buddhist monasteries. If this divine power is cultivated to its limits, it will be a greater divine power. One can literally tunnel through every single spatial node and reach any single part of the world. Given Desolate Marshal's attainments in Buddhism, it won't be long before he cultivates heavenly feet to become a greater divine power. Even if you've comprehended a greater divine power, you won't be able to escape my grasp. The Yu Emperor's expression was terrible as he roared. With a single stride, he crossed thousands of feet in the blink of an eye and charged toward Su Zimo with a terrifying speed. Before long, Su Zimo and the Yu Emperor had already left the Mahayana patriarchs far behind. Desolate Marshal, you can't escape. The Yu Emperor had a mocking expression and seemed like he was strolling idly. However, every single step he took crossed the voids and closed in rapidly toward Su Zimo. This was a greater divine power that could shrink the ground into inches. Swoosh! The Yu Emperor attacked and his horsetail whip tore through the air, letting out a howl. 3,000 silver threads spread and whipped down, not giving the Green Lotus True Body any space to dodge. Bang! The Green Lotus True Body somersaulted and more than half of his flesh was extracted, making him look extremely miserable. However, Su Zimo could still smile. You're already afraid. You know very well that if you're already unable to kill me after I comprehended a single greater divine power, the day of my return will be your death anniversary. Green light spewed out from Su Zimo's body with immense vitality. The flesh that was whipped off by the horsetail whip regrew rapidly and his injuries were healing. Su Zimo did not engage the Yu Emperor and continued escaping. Now that the crux of the matter had been pointed out by Su Zimo, the Yu Emperor was even more determined to kill him and chased relentlessly. Su Zimo lowered his head slightly with a cold glint in his eyes. He did possess methods that could kill emperors. However, that was his trump card and he did not want to expose it right now. However, if the Yu Emperor insisted on chasing, he would have to use his trump card to kill the Yu Emperor here. Chapter 1672, Exit of the Prime Body. Chapter 1672, Exit of the Prime Body. Su Zimo sprinted ahead. The Yu Emperor chased closely behind. The distance between the two of them was getting closer and the killing intent in Su Zimo's eyes was intensifying. Suddenly, an extremely evil aura suddenly descended and Su Zimo's bloodline could not help but stir, as though it was about to spill out of his body. Su Zimo's expression changed. That was the aura of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Su Zimo widened his eyes and channeled his heavenly eye. Crossing the voids, he caught sight of a figure 5,000 kilometers away. Although the figure was a little blurry, he recognized it instantly. Monk Daming. Monk Daming was giving him a hand. Ugh! Behind Su Zimo, the Yu Emperor suddenly grunted and paused. He staggered as though he was greatly affected. Without hesitation, Su Zimo released his heavenly feet and burrowed underground. His body was shrouded by a Buddhist light and he seemed to have fused with the mud as he tunneled underground without any resistance. That was the power of heavenly feet. Once heavenly feet was cultivated to become a greater divine power, one could tunnel far away within the 5 elements. This time round, after Su Zimo escaped, he could sense that the Yu Emperor did not catch up to him. Before long, he left the Yu Emperor behind completely. Su Zimo was puzzled. However, the danger was not over yet and Su Zimo did not think too much about it. He changed directions and sped towards Monk Daming. Given his speed, he arrived before long and leaped up from the ground, looking at Monk Daming who was not far away. Just as Su Zimo was about to thank Monk Daming with cupped fists, he realized that the latter's figure was gradually dissipating and turning into nothingness. Su Zimo lowered his gaze and saw the words on the ground, "See you on the divine power ranking." Monk Daming had long left and what remained was his phantom along with those words. Although it was a short statement, Su Zimo could sense Monk Daming's fighting spirit. It was only at this moment that Monk Daming truly viewed Su Zimo as his opponent. Those words were also a declaration of war. It had nothing to do with grudges. In this generation, anyone who could encounter an opponent close to their level would be delighted and want to compete. Prior to this, Monk Daming had always been ahead of Su Zimo. Toward Su Zimo, it was always similar to how a senior would look down upon a junior. But now that Su Zimo had comprehended a greater divine power and advanced to the late-stage Mahayana realm, Monk Daming knew that Su Zimo was qualified to be his opponent. Su Zimo looked at those words and suddenly smiled. Monk Daming would not have expected that the two of them had already fought when they were at the half-martial ancestor realm. Of course, that was the martial Dao Prime Body. This Green Lotus True Body had yet to engage Monk Daming in a hardy battle. Even Su Zimo was looking forward to it. Suddenly, Su Zimo frowned slightly and recalled the doubt he had earlier on. When he saw Monk Daming earlier on, his cultivation realm was only at the late-stage Mahayana realm. How could a late-stage Mahayana Monk Daming affect an emperor? Even the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra did not have such power. Furthermore, when Monk Daming released the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra earlier on, Su Zimo felt uncomfortable as well. His bloodline seemed to have broken free from his control and wanted to break out of his body. Su Zimo pondered for a moment but came to no conclusion. He suppressed that doubt in his heart for the time being and sped forward after determining his direction. Now that Su Zimo had advanced to the late-stage Mahayana realm, he was prepared to look for a secluded and safe place to enter seclusion once more to comprehend the other greater divine powers of the creation Green Lotus. The Dharma characteristic ranking was held once every 1,000 years. The divine power ranking was held once every 10,000 years. It had been close to 10,000 years since the previous divine power ranking. The divine power ranking would open up again in around 300 years. In that 300 years, he had to comprehend as many greater divine powers as possible so that he could fight Monk Daming. Hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, the Yu Emperor stood in the air with a changed expression. His eyes flickered with shock and fear. Just who in the world was that? Impossible. The Yu Emperor narrowed his eyes with a strange blood glint. After pondering for a moment, he could not come up with an answer. Taking a deep breath of air, he sneered, "Desolate Marshal, you can escape for now, but not forever. The only way is if you do not appear to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking. Once you do, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground. There won't be any accidents next time." When Su Zimo came out of seclusion this time round, he fought against many Mahayana patriarchs and even attracted the attack of an emperor, causing quite a stir in the ancient battlefield. However, things calmed down gradually with Su Zimo's disappearance. The ancient battlefield returned to normal. However, all the patriarchs knew in their hearts that once Desolate Marshal reappeared, another bloodbath would definitely break out in the ancient battlefield. The Yu Emperor would definitely not let Desolate Marshal off. There was no room for negotiation between the two of them. If the Yu Emperor could not kill Desolate Marshal, his death would come the day the latter becomes an emperor. Tianhuang Mainland. When the Green Lotus True Body entered seclusion once more, the Martial Dao Prime Body that was in Pingyang Town exited his seclusion. Now that he was out of seclusion, the Martial Dao Prime Body had already entered the Mahayana realm. For the Martial Dao Prime Body, the most normal cultivation method was to enter the ancient battlefield and comprehend divine powers there. However, that way, the path of the Martial Dao Prime Body would be no different from the Green Lotus True Body. Furthermore, there was another place that might be more suitable for the Martial Dao Prime Body than the ancient battlefield. Of course, this place was also extremely dangerous. The Martial Dao Prime Body looked to the west. "Young master, are you leaving?" Tao Yao arrived beside the Martial Dao Prime Body and asked softly. Over the years of cultivation, Tao Yao had already cultivated to the conjoint body realm and became a grand demon. Under normal circumstances, apart from seclusion cultivation, one had to head out to train and fight against many strong foes. One could only break through bottlenecks better through countless life and death battles. After all, there was only a single person in history that could make use of the Martial Dao furnace to smelt all dharmic arts and nurture 100 sutras, a single variant like the Martial Dao Prime Body. However, Tao Yao was even stranger. He did not have to fight with others. However, his cultivation would increase bit by bit just by staying in this tiny courtyard in Pingyang Town. It was neither fast nor slow, but there were no bottlenecks. The Martial Dao Prime Body could not understand it either. However, in the eyes of the Martial Dao Prime Body, this was not a bad thing. After all, Tao Yao had never liked to fight. Although Tao Yao had fought with others up till this point of his cultivation, his palm had not been tainted by a single drop of blood. "I'm leaving." The martial Tao Prime Body nodded slightly. "There's no need for you to follow. Stay in Pingyang town and protect the citizens well." "I will, don't worry, young master." Although Tao Yao's eyes were reluctant, he nodded obediently. Chapter 1673, Divine Powers Refinement. Chapter 1673, Divine Powers Refinement. Kunlun Ruins. This was a forbidden ground for all Mahayana patriarchs. This day, a purple-robed man arrived. His face was blurry as though he was shrouded by a fog. The martial Tao Prime Body looked at the ruins not far away and walked forward with a deep gaze. He passed through the outer perimeter of the Kunlun ruins and arrived before the Kunlun barrier. Without hesitation, the martial Tao Prime Body broke through the Kunlun barrier and entered the Kunlun ruins. The moment the martial Tao Prime Body entered the Kunlun ruins, the entire Kunlun ruins trembled as though it was agitated. Divine powers began to gather around the martial Tao Prime Body and rapidly formed a divine power storm that engulfed the latter. The divine power storm contained an extremely terrifying power that destroyed the body of the martial Tao Prime Body. It destroyed all life, as though it wanted to destroy everything. Unlike a healing divine power storm, this divine power storm possessed a terrifying killing power. Although it was only a lesser divine power storm, blood scars appeared on the surface of the martial Tao Prime Body's skin the moment the storm descended. The body of the martial Tao Prime Body could take on dermic treasures head-on and was not weaker than any divine weapon. However, he was covered in injuries from the envelopment of the divine power storm. There was no fear in the eyes of the martial Tao Prime Body. Instead, they shone brighter. "Refine." The martial Tao Prime Body hollered. Whoosh! His figure seemed to have vanished and in its place was a gigantic furnace. The martial spirit fire burned furiously, wanting to refine the divine power storm. The two powers intertwined continuously. The divine power storm wanted to extinguish the martial spirit fire while the martial spirit fire wanted to incinerate the divine power storm. This time round, the martial Tao Prime Body was not smelting dermic arts, but divine powers. Going to the ancient battlefield to observe, comprehend and cultivate various divine powers was way too slow. Furthermore, if he headed to the ancient battlefield to comprehend divine powers, the martial Tao Prime Body would not be able to avoid fighting for the divine power ranking and he would definitely be exposed. If he comprehended divine powers step by step, the martial Tao Prime Body might not even be comparable to the Green Lotus True Body. That was because the creation Green Lotus was an utmost treasure of the universe and contained divine powers to begin with. It was closer to the universe and coupled with the fact that the human emperor passed down his title and gathered the fortune of the world, its cultivation speed was naturally extremely shocking. If the martial Tao Prime Body wanted to raise his combat strength as soon as possible, he could only take an extreme path. Since the martial Tao furnace could smelt all dermic arts, why not divine powers? As long as a divine power was smelted completely, it would be equivalent to having that divine power fused into the martial Tao furnace, becoming one with the martial Tao Prime Body. The divine power storm and martial spirit fire were still fighting. Neither side was willing to back down. At the most dangerous moment, the body of the martial Tao Prime Body was already destroyed. The remaining martial spirit fire was almost dispersed by the divine power storm as well and turned into an extremely weak wisp of flame. If the martial spirit fire was extinguished, it would be equivalent to the death of the martial Tao Prime Body. Up till this point of his cultivation, the martial Tao Prime Body had never encountered such a dangerous situation. However, the martial Tao Prime Body did not show any fear. Instead, his gaze turned firmer. While smelting the divine power storm, he tempered his Tao heart and determination. After a long time, the power of the divine power storm gradually weakened. The light of the martial spirit fire intensified. The martial Tao furnace had finally gained the upper hand. After another long period of refinement, the divine power storm around the martial Tao prime body gradually disappeared. To be precise, it did not disappear. Instead, it was completely refined by the martial Tao furnace and became a part of it. The power of the martial Tao prime body had increased significantly as well. The figure of the martial Tao prime body appeared and channeled his blood qi. The wounds on his body healed in the blink of an eye. Right then, the martial Tao prime body felt something strange and looked over instinctively. Unknowingly, powerful living beings had gathered around him. The commotion attracted many Kunlun clansmen. Those Kunlun clansmen widened their eyes and looked at the martial Tao prime body, completely scared out of their wits. Apart from desolate martial in the past, this was the first time they saw someone walk out alive from a divine power storm. Even in the past, the reason why desolate martial was able to survive the divine power storm was because of immense luck. He only managed to survive by chance because it was a healing divine power storm that collided against the power of the sword of misfortune. But now, the purple-robed mysterious man fought against the divine power storm with his own strength and survived. In the end, even the divine power storm could not hold on and its power dissipated, vanishing. At that moment, the many Kunlun clansmen did not realize that the power of the divine power storm had not dissipated at all. Instead, it was smelted and fused into the body of the martial Tao prime body. "Intruder, who are you?" a Kunlun half-martial ancestor asked in a deep voice. The peak half-martial ancestor experts of the Kunlun race followed Night Spirit to Tianhuang mainland to break through and were staying in Ethereal Peak for the time being. More than half of the remaining Kunlun clansmen stayed here to guard the Kunlun ruins. If anything happened in the Rainbow Cave above the God-slaying valley, they would inform the Kunlun Lord, Night Spirit, right away. The martial Tao prime body ignored the surrounding Kunlun clansmen and continued towards the Kunlun ruins. "Let me remind you," the Kunlun half-martial ancestor said in a deep voice, "there are many divine power storms here and what you just experienced is only one of them. If you trigger a greater or supreme divine power storm, you'll definitely be shattered into pieces. Is that so?" The martial Tao prime body murmured softly and suddenly released a divine power from his body. The power released caused another violent fluctuation in the Kunlun ruins as tremendous divine powers gathered around the martial Tao prime body once more. In the blink of an eye, 2 divine power storms were formed. Is he a lunatic? He even took the initiative to trigger a divine power storm. "Everyone, keep your distance and don't get implicated." Many Kunlun clansmen shouted and retreated, afraid that they would be implicated by the divine power storms around the martial Tao prime body. They had lived in the ruins for countless years and had never seen anyone like this. Others would want nothing more than to avoid divine power storms. This person actually took the initiative to trigger them. 2 divine power storms were formed and the martial spirit fire burned once more. The martial Tao furnace appeared and smelted the power of the divine power storms. Up till now, the martial Tao prime body was still extremely careful and did not dare to trigger a greater divine power storm. However, as time passed by, after the martial Tao furnace smelted enough lesser divine power storms, the power of his body in furnace would reach its limits. At that time, he could attempt to smelt greater divine power storms. Eventually, he would smelt the supreme divine powers here. There was no place more suitable for the martial Tao prime body than the Kunlun ruins. The divine powers contained in this battlefield were much richer than in the ancient battlefield. More importantly, the martial Tao prime body did not have to worry about being exposed here. The Kunlun clansmen within could not get out because of the Kunlun barrier, while intruders wouldn't be able to enter or even use their spirit consciousnesses to detect what was happening within the Kunlun ruins. Not only did the martial Tao prime body want to hide from the primordial races, he wanted to hide from the even more terrifying and mysterious existences of Tianhuang Mainland. Chapter 1674, Hunting Patriarchs. Chapter 1674, Hunting Patriarchs. Time passed by quickly. It had been 300 years since Desolate Marshal appeared in the ancient battlefield. In the past 300 years, although there were occasional fights and killings in the ancient battlefield, they did not cause much of a stir. Nobody discovered any traces of Desolate Marshal for 300 years. It was as though Desolate Marshal had vanished completely after he appeared. As the fight for the divine power ranking approached, the ancient battlefield turned chaotic once more. More and more Mahayana patriarchs gathered towards the region of the divine power ranking. Even some Mahayana patriarchs who were in seclusion cultivation came out of seclusion one after another and rushed over. The divine power ranking was only held once every 10,000 years, and it was a rare opportunity. If one could obtain a spot on the divine power ranking and obtain the inheritance of a greater divine power, it might be even greater than the increase in strength after countless years of seclusion. Furthermore, there were some empty spots on the divine power ranking this time round. For example, Matriarch Yu Luo of Heavenly Dipper sect and Patriarch Fei Duan of Malevolent Earth sect died at the 10,000 race meet. 300 years ago, Di Yun, who was ranked 33 on the divine power ranking, died at the hands of Desolate Marshal. In the past 10,000 years, even more spots opened up. Some of them died in battles in the ancient battlefield, while some of them comprehended supreme divine powers and became emperors, relinquishing their positions on the divine power ranking. Of the 36 spots on the divine power ranking, 11 were now empty. The fight for those empty spots would definitely be intense. As for some Mahayana patriarchs, they wanted to make use of the divine power ranking this time round to raise their spots so that they could inherit even more greater divine powers. Even some early, mid and late-stage Mahayana patriarchs who did not have the strength to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking would choose to spectate. For many patriarchs, this was a rare event. At that time, many patriarchs and experts would enter the fray. If they could comprehend a little knowledge because of that, their trip would not be wasted. I heard that the rank 1 of the divine power ranking 10,000 years ago, Jianchunzi, comprehended a supreme divine power and is now an emperor. Now that he's off the divine power ranking, I wonder who will take his spot. It's definitely Patriarch Qi Huang of Malevolent Earth sect. He's already rank 2 on the divine power ranking for 30,000 years. If he hadn't lost to Jianchunzi by a single move 10,000 years ago, he would have been rank 1 of the divine power ranking. Before the divine power ranking began, countless patriarchs had already begun discussing and analyzing the situation of the divine power ranking. Not necessarily. Another patriarch shook his head gently. Rank 3 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Ji Lei of Zephyr Thunder Palace, has also occupied the 3rd spot for 20,000 years. I think Patriarch Ji Lei has a high chance of winning this time round. Let's put it this way. Now that the top spot is emptied out, the other 5 of the top 6 all have a chance of fighting for that spot on the divine power ranking. Right then, a patriarch suddenly said, I reckon that Desolate Marshal will definitely appear for the divine power ranking this time round as well. Perhaps he might even get to fight for the top few spots of the divine power ranking. Him? Another patriarch pouted his lips in disapproval. He only comprehended a single greater divine power 300 years ago. After that, he'll only be able to comprehend 1 or 2 more at most. Even with the Green Lotus true body, it's already not bad if he can get into the top 20 of the divine power ranking. How can he have the strength to fight for the top few spots? A patriarch at the side agreed. That's right. Notwithstanding the top 6 of the divine power ranking, even the patriarchs in the top 10 have been famous in the ancient battlefield for a long time and have comprehended more than 15 greater divine powers. The difference between them is too great. That's not all. Another person said, don't forget, an emperor of the D clan tried to kill Desolate Marshal 300 years ago but failed. I reckon that Desolate Marshal might not even dare to appear this time round. As the fight for the Divine Power ranking approached, the changes on the Divine Power ranking became more obvious. The Divine Power ranking hovered in the firmaments and scrolls spread out with names written on them, emitting golden lights. Some of the spots were blank, indicating that they were empty. If one were to approach, they would discover that every single spot on the Divine Power ranking would reflect a gigantic region on the ground that was shrouded by golden light. There were a total of 36 such golden regions beneath the Divine Power ranking. This was the battlefield of the Divine Power ranking. Some of the golden regions had Mahayana Patriarchs guarding them. If anyone wanted to fight for the spot, they would have to go to that particular golden region and challenge the Mahayana Patriarch in its place. Nobody was allowed to interrupt the fight. Every single golden region could only accommodate 2 people. At that moment, there were hundreds of Mahayana Patriarchs gathered beneath the Divine Power ranking. Mahayana Patriarchs had a lifespan of 100,000 years. These Patriarchs were equivalent to 100,000 years of foundation of the human race. Look! Rank 28 on the Divine Power ranking has disappeared. Right then, a cry sounded from the crowd and many Patriarchs pointed at the Divine Power ranking in the firmaments with shocked expressions. What's going on? Some of the Mahayana Patriarchs who arrived later on approached and asked curiously. I heard that recently, Patriarchs of the Divine Power ranking have been removed one after another, resulting in empty spots. A Mahayana Patriarch explained, that's already 5 in 5 days. Ah! The Mahayana Patriarchs were shocked and they heard that. There were only 2 possibilities if a Patriarch's Divine Power ranking was removed before the battle of the Divine Power ranking even began. First, if this Mahayana Patriarch comprehended a supreme Divine Power and became an emperor, he would naturally disappear from the Divine Power ranking. However, the probability of that was extremely low. Furthermore, there wouldn't be so many emperors ascending in succession, that was 5 Patriarchs in 5 days. The second scenario was for a Mahayana Patriarch on the Divine Power ranking to be killed. If they died, they would naturally be removed from the Divine Power ranking. Someone's hunting Patriarchs on the Divine Power ranking. Right then, someone said something that exploded in the crowd. Hunting Patriarchs on the Divine Power ranking. Who was it? Who would have such methods? Desolate Marshal. A Mahayana Patriarch grit his teeth. Desolate Marshal must have done it. Desolate Marshal has reappeared. It's not Desolate Marshal. Right then, another Mahayana Patriarch seemed to have thought of something and revealed a reminiscent expression. A few days ago, I encountered a black-robed man in the ancient battlefield. His long hair covered most of his face and his appearance could not be seen clearly. This black-robed man once asked me about the location of some Mahayana Patriarchs on the Divine Power ranking. I wasn't bothered at that time. Now that I think about it, there's a high chance that this person was going to hunt down those Mahayana Patriarchs. Who is that? The many Patriarchs were puzzled. Could there be another monster incarnate in the ancient battlefield apart from Desolate Marshal? Right then, another commotion broke out in the crowd. Look! Someone pointed at the Divine Power ranking with a pale expression and said with a trembling voice, Rank 6 on the Divine Power ranking, Patriarch Scatter Knight, has vanished. Chapter 1675, Gathering of Experts. Chapter 1675, Gathering of Experts. The top 6 of the Divine Power ranking were the strongest Mahayana Patriarchs in the ancient battlefield. Without extraordinary means, the top 6 wouldn't have been able to kill their way to the top to inherit the supreme divine powers of the eternal human emperor. Nobody expected that one of the top 6 of the Divine Power ranking would be gone before the actual battle even began. Strange. A Mahayana patriarch frowned slightly and pondered. There's no pattern to the patriarchs on the divine power ranking hunted by this mysterious person. Some of them are from Snowdrift Valley, some of them are from Asura sect, while some of them are from Formless Monastery. There are individuals from the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sections. What's the background of this person? Why is he hunting patriarchs on the divine power ranking? Another person said, isn't this person afraid that the emperors of the super sects will attack him in the ancient battlefield? Stop guessing. Once the divine power ranking begins, this person will definitely appear. The fight for the divine power ranking was getting closer and closer. The number of Mahayana patriarchs around the divine power ranking was still increasing and had already broken through 1,000. A few hundred years ago, when Su Zimo spread the malevolent spirit fruits in Enigma Palace, many half-martial ancestor experts broke through and entered the Mahayana realm, entering the ancient battlefield. Right then, a boom sounded not far away and the ground trembled, as though a supreme expert had broken out of seclusion. Many patriarchs turned to look. On the horizon, a blazing thunderbolt sped over and arrived above the heads of many patriarchs instantly, revealing a figure. Rank 3 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Ji Lei. Many cultivators looked at Patriarch Ji Lei with reverence. He was rank 3 on the divine power ranking for 20,000 years and had defeated several strong foes in 2 divine power ranking battles. Foo-foo. Suddenly, a chuckle came not far away. A figure walked over slowly from midair with a smile and cupped his fists. Brother Ji Lei, how have you been? The crowd stirred. That figure was none other than Patriarch Pai Xian, who was rank 5 on the divine power ranking. Why? Are you still going to challenge me this time round? Patriarch Ji Lei glanced sideways at Patriarch Pai Xian and smirked with a mocking expression. Patriarch Pai Xian was not enraged at all. It's fine, even if I can't do it this time round, I can try again in another 10,000 years. I'm still young, but you're already declining from your peak. You'll definitely lose if this continues. In the divine power ranking 20,000 years ago, Patriarch Pai Xian was defeated by Patriarch Ji Lei. Over the years, the two of them had fought countless times and Patriarch Pai Xian was always the one defeated. The two of them could be considered as old enemies. Right now, they were at odds the moment they met and it was extremely tense. I heard that Patriarch Ji Lei isn't young anymore. He seems to be around 80,000 years old. That's old. Under normal circumstances, he should be in his twilight years at 70,000 to 80,000 years old. However, there's no sign of aging on Patriarch Ji Lei's body and his blood qi is still so strong. Impressive. Some patriarchs discussed softly. The two of you had better save your energy. Another figure appeared slowly in midair. It was a woman with shoulder-length purple hair. She had a long sword on her back and a grim expression. Rank 4 on the divine power ranking, Matriarch Xiaofan of Purple Firmament sect. Matriarch Xiaofan said, the two of you have been in seclusion for many years. I'm afraid you haven't heard of a monster incarnate in the ancient battlefield who specializes in hunting patriarchs on the divine power ranking. Up till now, at least 6 patriarchs have died in his hands. Furthermore, no one knows his background and he's extremely mysterious. Oh. Patriarch Ji Lei thought nothing of it and said indifferently, he's just a coward who's hiding. There's nothing to worry about. Suddenly, the world seemed to have darkened as an extremely repressed aura descended, giving everyone a sense of danger. All the patriarchs present felt suffocated. The patriarchs were all way too familiar with that aura. Rank 2 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Tianhuang of Malevolent Earth sect. Patriarch Tianhuang walked towards the divine power ranking expressionlessly with a powerful might. The discussions in the crowd gradually disappeared and everyone went silent instinctively. At that moment, apart from those who died, all the patriarchs on the divine power ranking were present. "Look, it's that person." "Who?" "The mysterious person hunting the patriarchs on the divine power ranking." The crowd had just quietened down with the appearance of Patriarch Tianhuang when another huge commotion broke out. Even Patriarch Tianhuang could not suppress such a scene. Many patriarchs turned towards the north. A white-robed man strode over. His long hair was scattered casually and covered most of his face. The man only revealed one eye. However, it was deep and bright, as though it was filled with endless wisdom. Anyone who met with that eye would be lost within instinctively. A faint blood scar could be seen on the man's glabella. However, no one connected the scar to the heavenly eye race's heavenly eye. That was because the ancient battlefield was sealed by a barrier and no one from the primordial races could enter. When they saw the blood scar, many patriarchs merely thought that it was a scar on the person's glabella. "That's him." Matriarch Xiaofan said sternly, "I've once seen this person from afar. He's extremely strong and unfathomable. I don't have any confidence against him either. Where did this guy come from? Why haven't I heard of him before?" Patriarch Pai Xian frowned slightly. Even he felt uneasy when he exchanged glances with the white-robed man. Patriarch Ji Lei narrowed his eyes and his gaze flickered in deep thought. Patriarch Tianhuang turned around as well and glared at the intruder fixedly, emitting an extremely dangerous aura. Against the gazes of so many experts, the white-robed man walked over casually in a composed manner without any bit of uneasiness. Suddenly, as though he sensed something, the white-robed man suddenly turned and looked towards the east. At that moment, even Patriarch Tianhuang and the others did not notice anything. However, not long after, a figure appeared in the eastern horizon. His green robes fluttered and his black hair fell like a waterfall. His eyes were clear as he rode on the wind. "Desolate Marshal. Desolate Marshal is here too. Desolate Marshal is truly not afraid of death." Even those who had not seen Su Zimo personally before could guess the identity of the green-robed cultivator judging from his attire and the powerful life force he exuded. "You're here." Su Zimo approached and shifted his gaze, greeting the white-robed man. Everyone was shocked. From his tone, Desolate Marshal seemed to know this mysterious person. Others might not know the white-robed man, but Su Zimo naturally knew in his heart that the mysterious person who hunted the patriarchs of the divine power ranking was Monk Daming. "Why did you kill them?" Su Zimo frowned slightly and went straight to the point. He could understand if Monk Daming killed patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Penglai Island. However, he did not understand why Monk Daming would deal with patriarchs of Snowdrift Valley and some other super sections. There shouldn't be any grudges between them. Monk Daming went silent for a moment. "The same reason why I wanted to kill you." "You mean to say?" Su Zimo was shocked. Chapter 1676, Asura Dao. Chapter 1676, Asura Dao. Monk Daming once said that he harbored killing intents toward Su Zimo because the latter cultivated the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. The reason why Monk Daming did not appear on 6 Stars Mountain the entire time was to test Su Zimo. The reason why Monk Daming did not attack Su Zimo was because even when his life was hanging by a thread, the latter did not use the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. Right now, Monk Daming was implying that those people he killed had all cultivated the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. What happened? Su Zimo frowned and asked. Monk Daming shook his head gently. The actual situation might be even more terrifying than you can imagine. The conversation between the two of them did not reveal any information and was understood only by both of them. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs were confused. Are there still people like them on the divine power ranking? Su Zimo asked again. Yes. Monk Daming replied. Su Zimo exchanged glances with Monk Daming and suddenly smiled. The two of them understood what the other party wanted to do without the need to continue speaking. It was a tacit understanding. Although the two of them did not interact much, they seemed like bosom buddies. Right then, a powerful aura descended. A scholar-like cultivator appeared in midair with a square-shaped stone slab on his back. It was unknown what dermic treasure that was. He wore white robes and waved his sleeves. Although he had a sage-like demeanor, he exuded the might of the Emperor Dao. An emperor had descended. Senior Chess Emperor, to think that you'll be the one hosting this divine power ranking battle. In the crowd, Lin Xuanji stood out and bowed to the white-robed scholar. Within the crowd, some of Su Zimo's acquaintances had already arrived. Lin Xuanji, Mingzhen and Demonis Ji had already entered the Mahayana realm and arrived in the ancient battlefield. However, their cultivation realms were only at the early stage Mahayana realm and they could not take part in the fight for the divine power ranking. Su Zimo looked around but did not see the Asura, Yen Beichen. Humph. The chess emperor blew his beard. There's still no news of your master after he ran into the human emperor's palace. As such, I have no other choice but to host it. The chess emperor was another emperor of Enigma Palace. Legend has it that the chess emperor loved chess more than anything else. His favorite thing in life was to specialize in chess and fight with others on the chessboard. In the end, he actually managed to create a Dao that belonged to him. He reached the peak of his chess Dao and fused the legacy secret skills of Enigma Palace with his chess Dao, comprehending a supreme divine power that allowed him to become an emperor. The chess emperor could be considered an anomaly in the cultivation world. That's enough. The chess emperor waved it off. There's no need for unnecessary formalities. Those who want to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking, hurry and fight. Hurry and end it. I still have a deadlock on a chessboard waiting for me to resolve. With a look of impatience, the chess emperor urged the Mahayana patriarchs below. Patriarch Tianhuang, Patriarch Jilei and the others moved one after another and led the way into the golden regions enveloped by the divine power ranking. They were ranked on the divine power ranking. If anyone wanted their spots on the divine power ranking, they would have to challenge them. As for the emptied spots, they were free for all the other patriarchs to fight for. Monk Daming's gaze swept past the patriarchs on the divine power ranking and finally landed on a person as he walked slowly towards the ladder. Rank 3 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Jilei. Just who is that person? He's actually challenging Patriarch Jilei right away. Judging from his cultivation realm, he's only at the late-stage Mahayana realm and has yet to cultivate to the perfected Mahayana realm. How strong can he be? I don't know how strong he is. At the very least, he killed rank 6 on the divine power ranking. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs were merely watching the show. However, Su Zimo was the only one who knew why Monk Daming targeted Patriarch Jilei. No wonder Patriarch Jilei could possess such strong blood chi despite his almost 80,000 years old lifespan. It's because he cultivated the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. Su Zimo glanced at Patriarch Jilei and turned towards another golden region. Desolate Marshal is prepared to make a move as well. By the looks of it, he seems to be headed for Patriarch Su Jing. Patriarch Su Jing, rank 21 on the divine power ranking. Between him, Fei Duan and Yu Luo, he was the only one who survived the 10,000 race meet. Patriarch Su Jing looked at the approaching Su Zimo with a grim expression and said slowly, "Why? Fellow Daoist Desolate Marshal, are you looking to settle old scores with me?" "Sort of." Su Zimo replied indifferently, "The divine power ranking is a treasure passed down by the human emperor and protects the human race. You're not worthy of being on it." That was his and Monk Daming's choice. Monk Daming chose to remove the patriarchs on the divine power ranking who cultivated the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. As for him, he chose to remove the Patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Penglai Island. The both of them were joining forces to remove the impurities of the divine power ranking. Whether I'm worthy or not is not determined by you. Patriarch Su Jing's expression darkened. Desolate Marshal, I might be afraid if it's your Dragon Phoenix true body. Your Green Lotus true body is only at the late-stage Mahayana realm. If we fight with our full strength, nobody knows who the victor will be. Is that so? Su Zimo did not stop and entered the Golden Light region. With a huge stride, he arrived before Patriarch Su Jing in the blink of an eye and shouted, "Let me see what you have." Boom! Boom! He flipped his palm and his blood chi burst forth with the sound of tsunami, releasing a torrential might that suppressed Patriarch Su Jing. Asura Dao! Patriarch Su Jing suddenly shouted. A mighty figure appeared behind him like a fiend celestial. It was indomitable with 9 heads, 8 legs and 1,000 hands with a terrifying aura. The Asura Dao was a greater divine power and one of the 6 Daos of the Buddhist monasteries. Legend has it that Asuras were half-human half-gods who were brave and loved to fight. They were extremely strong. If one could cultivate the Asura Dao, the phantom of an Asura would descend and help cultivators fight against strong foes, causing their combat strength to increase exponentially. Extinguish! Su Zimo's gaze intensified and green glows burst forth from his body, surging into the skies like a sharp sword chi. Before the Asura could materialize, it was pierced by the green glows and dissipated after a momentary stalemate. Patriarch Su Jing's expression changed. The moment his greater divine power was released, it was destroyed by Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo's attack did not stop at all and his gigantic palm descended. Patriarch Su Jing did not have the time to release a second divine power. He swiped his storage bag and withdrew a cold saber, slashing it toward Su Zimo's wrist. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid and bent his fingers slightly. With a clang, a few fingernails that were sharp as daggers protruded and dug into Patriarch Su Jing's saber instantly. Clang! There was a crisp sound. Patriarch Su Jing's saber could not advance and was locked by Su Zimo's fingers without budging at all. Shatter! Su Zimo hollered and exerted strength with his fingertips. Crack! 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 Creaks sounded and cracks appeared on the saber one after another. Pust! Many Mahayana patriarchs gasped in shock. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.